I'd like to convene the Lake Forest City Council meeting, May 21st, 2013. City Attorney, closed session. Was there anything reportable actions?
No reportable action taken, Mayor.
Okay, at this time we'd like to open up the public session. The City Council will convene to consider public matters. Those wishing to address the City Council must submit a complete request to speak form must complete the for the City Council on actions. At this time, we'll open an invocation by Mayor Voights. If those would like to join me or have a moment of silence. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Father, for tonight. We thank you for the ability to live this in the greatest nation in the world. We thank you, Father, for the positions you have put us as council members in. We ask, Father, that you would bring us to unity for a common cause and purpose for the people of Lake Forest. We ask that you would protect those that serve us at night and day, Father, on the streets, to protecting us, the Orange County Sheriff Department and the personnel that protect here in Lake Forest. We thank you for those that serve in the Orange County Fire Authority. We thank you for protecting them with the hedge of protection. And we thank you for those that are serving overseas, protecting and standing forth for the ideas that America stands for. We thank you for this meeting. We ask for safe passage to those that are attending here and all us in council and our staff. We thank you, and we just say amen to this. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Herzog.
As you all probably know, Monday is Memorial Day, and obviously this country was founded with people sacrificing their lives, going back to the Revolutionary War, and that has continued throughout the history of our nation. And so as you say the Pledge of Allegiance this time, please keep those veterans, and particularly those that have sacrificed themselves, in mind, again in honor of Memorial Day and all those that have served this country.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Presentations.
Second.
City Manager.
Agenda item 5, report by Investment Oversight Reviewer, quarter ended March 31st, 2013, submitted by the Director of Finance, City Treasurer.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Lai, and I'm the engagement partner from Macias, Genie & O'Connell. And we've been engaged by the city to perform certain investment procedures, an agreed-upon procedures report for the quarter ended March 31st, 2013. Amongst those procedures, just by way of background, are sample procedures such as the following: to determine whether the city's policy complies with the California Government Code. I'm pleased to report that there were no exceptions that were noted as a result of those procedures. We did review all of the respective monthly treasurer's reports that are required to be submitted for the quarters, so specifically the January, February, and March 2013 monthly treasurer reports, and made sure that all the respective elements that were required by the city's own policy as well as the California Government Code were in fact submitted. Again, pleased to report no exceptions related to those procedures. We also took a very detailed look with respect to the investments held by the City of Lake Forest to determine whether or not those were in fact in compliance with the California Government Code as well as the city's investment policies. Again, no exceptions were found. In terms of activity for the respective quarter, there was one investment that was purchased during the quarter. We've been asked to review to determine whether or not the city complied with their competitive bidding of those respective investments, in which they did. So again, no exceptions noted. Just with respect to the rating actions related to any of your investments, on a sample basis, we will review at least 5 investments held as of March 31st and compare the credit ratings of those respective investments to Moody's Corporation's ratings, and there's been no rating actions taken on those respective investments. And then again, by way of summary, with respect to the March 2013 monthly Treasury report, they've asked us to recalculate the difference between the book value and the fair value as of March 31st. And the market value of the city's investment portfolio was $2,200, less than its book value of $54.6 million, and that represented only 0.004% of the market value of the city's investment portfolio as of March 31st. And then with respect to your percent yield for the average 3 months maturing at March 31st, the city's investment portfolio percentage return at March 31st, 2013 was 0.256%. When you compare that to the U.S. Treasury's percentage of return for securities maturing at approximately the same time, it's in excess of that, which is only 0.110%. So better than the average yield on those U.S. Treasuries. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to entertain any type of questions from the council. Thank you.
Agenda item 6, introduction of new employee, Karen Johnson, Human Resources Technician, submitted by Deputy City Manager, Director of Management Services.
Mayor and members of the City Council, tonight it is my pleasure to introduce Karen Johnson, our new Human Resources Technician in Management Services. Karen comes to us from the City of Fountain Valley, and prior to that, she served the City of San Clemente, and she also worked in the private sector for some years. She earned her bachelor's degree from Cal State Fullerton and holds a master's degree in Human Resources Management from Chapman University. And since 1996, she has been a proud resident of Lake Forest. So with that, please join me in welcoming Karen to the City of Lake Forest.
On behalf of the whole City Council, we welcome you, and you actually bring forth living, shopping, and working in the City of Lake Forest, so welcome.
Agenda item 7, introduction of new employee, Amanda Jones, Management Assistant, submitted by Assistant City Manager.
Mayor, members of the council, please join me in welcoming Amanda Jones to the City of Lake Forest. Amanda may look familiar to some of you. She's been an intern here with the city for some time, working in the Economic Development Community Preservation Department, and she's already had a vital role in the many events that we put on through that department, mostly in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, so she's gotten to know all of our chamber partners. Amanda, like Karen, is a proud resident of the City of Lake Forest and a proud graduate of El Toro High. There you go. So you could give us our report. She's also a proud graduate of the University of California of Los Angeles. We're very pleased, as is Deborah, in that regard. Amanda's going to be doing lots of different things for the department, but primarily assisting Jessica Gonzalez with the Business Development Attraction Program. And Amanda is the result of a very competitive field. So congratulations, and we're pleased to add you to our staff. Please join me in welcoming Amanda Jones.
And Amanda, I'd like to say, on behalf of the City Council and myself, and you actually feel like part of us because of the work you've done with us as intern. So thank you for your service as an intern to us. Congratulations on and welcome to the staff of the Lake Forest City Council. Thank you. With that, we'd have like the report from the student liaison from El Toro.
Good evening. I am Jeff Dominic, the Student Council Liaison, City Council Liaison for the 2013-2014 school year, filling in for Jens, who has strep throat tonight. Finally, things at El Toro are starting to simmer down, well, at least academically. The end of the year signals the plenty of excitement, stress, and fun, and the horrible temperatures that the Chargers face. First off, juniors, seniors, and a few lucky sophomores, May begins the beginning of AP and IB testing. Students have studied all year and racked their brains to write the best essays, fill out the multiple choice correctly, and hopefully solve that terrifying math problem on the AP calculus test. However, as testing comes to a close this week, we're reminded that testing is only the beginning of the activities at the end of the school year. Next off, El Toro's air guitar competition was held last Friday and sold out before tickets even had a chance to go on sale at the door. 8 teams competed for the favor of the crowd, and the song choreography ranged from Beyonce to Disney in the Circus Freak Show theme. The announcement of the winner will occur this Friday on the Bullseye as many Chargers eagerly await the results for the vote of the best dance crew. Last Sunday, Mother's Day of El Toro, male Chargers had the opportunity to attend the mother-son breakfast to eat some amazing pancakes and sausage, as well as participate in trivia games based on each other's knowledge of the other's personal life. Questions about mom's high school prom date and son's favorite sports team and other similar questions were asked. Victorious answers were awarded with home-baked cookies and various gift cards. In addition, last week's ASB elections occurred where over 50 candidates campaigned for 29 spots on El Toro's ASB. After speeches, posters, and plenty of candy, we now have a new ASB roster for the 2013-2014 school year. Last Friday for ET students was the last gym dance of the year, which was called the Holidance. This dance embraces the gargantuan number of holidays in the world and encourages students to dress up as their favorite. Any holiday was allowed from Christmas to Earth Day, and the variety of dress-up options was enormous. In addition, prom fever has struck El Toro. Every day, there seems to be another prom asking, and even next one better than the last. As our charters get increasingly creative with their prom asking, ASB, led by junior class president Valenciano, has been hard at work to make 007 prom the best dance of the year. Finally, Friday, May 31st is El Toro's last pep rally for the 2013 school year, and is going to be huge. Rally Night Live will host numerous digital shorts, a live band performance, and special guest appearances and awards, and much more from our dedicated Charger fans. With so much work to look forward to, I can't wait for the upcoming weeks. That's all for tonight, and as always, go Chargers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that brings us to public comments. At this time, members of the public may address the City Council regarding any items within the subject matter of the City Council. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless otherwise authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person and an overall time limit of 30 minutes for public comment session portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matters, whether or not it appears on the agenda, is requested to complete a request to speak form available at the door at the side. The completed form must be submitted to the city clerk or Deborah Rose up at the front here. And whenever possible, lengthy testimony should be presented to the City Council in writing. 8 copies and permanent points presented only orally. Additional, a request to register written comments form is available at the agenda public review counter. City Attorney, have we had any public request?
Jim Smith, followed by Marcia Rudolph.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Jim Smith with a company called Qualite Sports Lighting, and what I'm here to address this evening, and the first speaker said great things dear to my heart, competitive bidding. The City of Lake Forest chose on the sports park, on the lighting portion of it, not to put it out to a competitive bid, not to allow anyone to bid it. They just chose to pay $948,000 to Musco Lighting. I've talked to Mr. McGill about this, given him my criteria of my fixtures versus the Musco Lighting, which you have chosen to buy. He's passed it on to Mr. Wheeler in Public Works, and all I got back from Mr. Wheeler was the city decided to go with Musco. Well, they didn't even look at mine when it initially came about. My price to Mr. Wheeler, to Mr. McGill, I have a copy of my bid here tonight, which I'll leave. I'm $286,981 less than the company you chose to go with. We guarantee our light levels for 30 years along with the equipment. They choose to guarantee their light levels and equipment for 25 years. I just couldn't believe that the citizens of Lake Forest could pay an extra $286,981 and just throw that aside. It just doesn't sound right. And like I say, it never did come out to a competitive bid. Originally, I was told it was going to go through a program called TIP-TAP, which is a bid buying board where you negotiate the best available price from a company. And it turned out it didn't go to TIP-TAP. You just, I guess, gave the approval. The City Council, I was told, gave the approval, and was purchased directly from Musco Lighting. Now, the good part of this is the order is on a hold-for-release basis because the sports park is nowhere near construction on it. This order could be canceled at any time. And I would be glad to come in and speak to anyone about this product since I have left here a complete binder, a couple of them with Mr. McGill. I believe he's taken all his stuff and given it to Mr. Wheeler in Public Works. This is all my photometric data, all my warranty data, everything, including the written quotation sign. So I just wanted to say that that's a lot of extra money for a non-competitive situation.
Well, we can't respond to you on that.
I
Thank you for bringing
understand.
that forth to our attention, and
Okay.
we'll look into that.
Can I leave the paperwork?
You may with Deborah. You said you're a resident?
No, but I spend a lot of money at Lake Forest Transmission. Rob James loves me.
Okay. You're a consumer, then.
Big time consumer.
Okay,
My wife
thank
is
you.
just over to the Home Goods over here.
Thank you, sir.
Marcia Rudolph, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Good evening. This is your monthly vector control report. The first little critter that I have to report on is something called Culex tarlisix, and it is a vector, which means a potential bearer of the West Nile virus. And if there ever was a reason to make sure that any standing water, ponds, whatever, are taken care of, this little guy might be one of the reasons to do it. The other one is a mosquito that has the potential of carrying with it little critters that can bring malaria to anybody that they bite, and particularly they're carried by the fleas that go to the birds, that go to the critters, that go to us. The nice part about this particular critter is that its home is in Alaska. I think the most important lesson on all of this is the fact that it's important for us to make sure that we know our staff is, because I know how, overly conscientious they are about standing water, ponds, whatever. But if I did a ride-along with a 20-year veteran of vector control, and two of the things we had to do while I was on this ride-along was to deliver mosquito fish to a very disgusting-looking pools. So we need to make sure we're taking care of it. And thank goodness to Vector Control and your $5 out of your tax money. Thank you.
I'd like to make a quick comment. Council, or Marcia Rudolph, thank you for continuing to serve on Vector Control. Next item.
Bob Holtzclaw.
Bob Holtzclaw, a longtime resident here of Lake Forest. And I'd just like to comment on the last meeting that they had for the Park and Recreations thing about the dog park. It looks like they had about 9 different locations of the possibility for dog tracks or dog runs, whichever you want to call it. Some of these I'm sure probably will never come to be because they have no parking. But only 2 actually locations on Normandale and Whispering Hills for an actual undeveloped property. I'd love to see even a few more. I know the sports park has some vacant land there that they're not going to develop. If it's on the other side of the park, hey, dog people like to walk. So that wouldn't be a problem. And also the new developments off of that we're just building here near Town Center Drive. There's a construction buildings up on the top right there that would be a perfect spot for a bluff. I know they're thinking about building a small dog park in that development area. If they could trade it to that over there, I don't, things like this, there should be more locations for undeveloped property. And those two, I think, are pretty good. The only thing is they have it on there as competing property. My gosh, we're building a multi-million-dollar sports park, and these two right here would be probably good for a dog park. And I think we should seriously look at this. I invited Councilman Robinson over to my house last Saturday, and he was there for a neighborhood watch meeting that I had. And after the meeting, the first thing that anybody asked him was, the majority of the questions were about a dog park. And, it was just something that it's on the interest of a lot of people. I don't even have a dog anymore. But, this is something that everybody is interested in. And I was surprised how many emails I got when it was brought up at the City Council. So I sure, hopefully, that we still look for undeveloped property, even land swaps or whatever, and we can do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've had no additional requests.
Well, with that, we'll move it to consent calendar, warrant registry. Item number 8.
Agenda item 8, certification of warrant register submitted by Director of Finance, City Treasurer.
All matters listed under the consent calendar are consent and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, public, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Has anybody from the public asked for?
We've had a request from Councilmember Nick regarding the warrant payable to Emmanuel Jones.
Okay. Any other council members? No?
Is there anything staff wishes to pull off the warrant register?
No.
Okay, then I'll pull on page 20, Cummins and White.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Page 20, Cummins and White.
Page 20. With that, I'm entertaining motion.
So move the remaining.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Nick?
All right. A while ago, Mayor Voigt made a motion for us to be looking into issuing RFPs for lobbying and grant services. I see Emmanuel Jones and Associates again here. I am wondering where we are with those RFPs for lobbying and grant services, if I may.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, that RFP is being developed. We anticipate it to be on your next agenda.
Oh, great. Thank you. With that, I have no objection. I have no inquiry.
I'll
move it.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Madam Clerk, page 20.
Councilmember Herzog?
Okay, thank you very much. This is the
Mr. Herzog, if I could, just for a second. This matter involves a case to which Mr. Nick is a party, and since it's continued, Mr. Nick, I'd suggest that you recuse yourself from this deliberation, and then as soon as it's over, we'll invite you back. Thanks, Mr. Herzog. I'm sorry to interrupt.
and that was kind of the scope of my question. This item was not pulled, as it should have been. Mr. Nick has sued the city. The city resoundingly won in trial court, but it was appealed, and in the interim, he was elected to the city council. And because of legal ethical considerations, we had to hire outside counsel. Cummins and White is that outside counsel. And unfortunately, this isn't the first time it was not pulled. On May 7th, there was a warrant for Cummins and White on as well, which was then actually stayed on and was voted upon by all council members. In the past, this city has had a clear policy, as was clear with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Teddemer, where when there were issues of conflict, this was evaluated beforehand, there was clear statements made, and in Mr. Dixon's case, he recused himself after making his statement, and Mr. Tedemer did vote, but at each time there was a clear statement of why that had occurred. In this situation, that has not happened, including tonight, until it was actually pulled. And I'm curious as to why, because it does seem, at least on this occasion, there was a recusal as requested by the city attorney, even though it should have been by other parties. But I think we need to have this worked out, because obviously this will not be the last warrant for this attorney, because the appeal will continue, unfortunately, and that we need to then have the same kind of arrangement made as Mr. Dixon and Mr. Tedemer, which has been the city's policy and is what's appropriate under the conflict of interest rules. And I think we also need an evaluation of what we're going to do with regards to the past violation of May 7th. So hopefully that will move forward appropriately. But as far as this particular warrant, I mean, I obviously move approval of the warrant, but this issue does need to be cleaned up and handled appropriately in the future.
Did you, is that a motion? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know if Mr. Nick can hear us. Could you guys tell him? Yeah.
With that brings us to the consent calendar. Again, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, public, staff request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Madam Clerk, have we have any from the public?
I have a request from Jim Gardner for item 13 and a request from Councilmember Nick for item 12.
And I'd like to pull item number 18. And with that, I'll take for the remainder. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Clerk?
Just 1 second. Agenda item 12, award of contract for Village Pond Park Design Services submitted by Director of Community Services and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Nick.
All right, we're on item 12.
Item number 12.
All right, I reviewed the literature here, and well, first of all, I don't understand why we're not going with RJM. We have a rapport with them, we have a relationship with them. They're already doing the sports park and other various projects for us, and they are the lowest proposal here. They're the lowest of the four that I see here. So, again, we have a relationship with them. We are comfortable with the quality of the work they deliver. They are the lowest proposed dollar amount, and yet we're not going with them, which renders me dumbfounded. Also, on this table that I was looking at on page 55, rater number 2, I don't care to know who he or she is. I don't need to know who he or she is, but obviously it doesn't take a seasoned auditor to realize there is some noticeable favoritism here. On one hand, he or she gives a score of 40 to Cornerstone, which is half what the others did, and yet he or she gives a perfect 100, which is nowhere else in this table. to this company, Nuvas. I don't know any of the companies. I don't know any principal or any employee at any of these companies. All I know is that we have been happy with RJM Design Group, whoever they are, and they're giving us the lowest bid. Call me crazy, call me stupid, but I don't approve of this. I want to go with RJM Design Group, simply said, for those reasons.
So is that a motion?
I make a motion to not take a staff recommendation because it surely doesn't make sense to me. And instead, we go with RJM Design Group. Again, I have no affiliation with any of these companies, including RJM.
I'll second that motion. On the technical review that came through on the raters, all three raters that we had, RJM rating was far exceeded all other in the technical review on this, and they have a outstanding record of achievement, and they actually are actually the design people for our sports park. So I'll second that motion.
Further discussion.
Further discussion, yes.
Further discussion before we vote.
Okay.
Peter
Yes, yes.
is next.
Peter.
Yeah, well, as I recall very clearly, we've used Nuvus before as well. So we have relationships with them as well, and quite frankly, it's been our policy to spread contracts around as much as possible and not always to choose the same provider. And there's nothing here to indicate to me that there's any reason not to, and in fact, Nuvus came out in the point spread higher in overall total, so that as far as the reviewing committee, they decided they were the most qualified. As far as trying to claim somebody has favoritism, I find that truly unfortunate because there's no basis in fact on which to work from that, and to accuse someone, particularly in that methodology, to me is totally inappropriate. There's nothing to indicate anywhere in this report any kind of favoritism. I am not aware of our staff anywhere in the past having shown any kind of favoritism when we go through the bidding process. This is the first time in 20 years I've heard that kind of a comment made, and truly find it offensive at best. So to me, what we've got as a situation is that there's a $1,000 difference between the two bids. That's what we're talking about. Nuvus did come out on top as far as the qualifications. It's a totally different project than what was done before as far as working on the sports park. Obviously, with them having worked on the sports park, RGM has gotten a fair amount of our money already, and I see absolutely no problem whatsoever in providing this contract to Nuvus, and certainly will not be supporting the current motion. It would make a substitute motion that we approve Nuvus as staff has recommended.
Second. And discussion. It grieves me when I hear people say that there was some monkey business going on. And I'm trying to put this as delicately as I can. Number one, RJM has had a lot of our projects, rather than hearing a comment that they have been done in justice for this project compared to the park, our big park, and all the other projects that has been done, is just, to me, preposterous. I don't have a problem with spreading it around. If anything, I would expect somebody to say, I would have expected somebody to have a complaint that RJM has had too many, rather than take this project back. For me, I would like someone that can focus on Village Pond. It is one of my pet peeves that I want fixed, and I feel that all the people that scored, like Councilman Herzog said, we have used most of these people at some time or another. I don't have a problem with the rating, and I don't believe there was anything shenanigans going on with the rating, and I cannot support to take the project and give it to RJM. We have a good report with them. We have a good report with 99% of all the people that do business with our city. That's number one. So I would not like the citizens to get the idea that we don't have. If you hear some person out there saying we don't have a good rapport with them, it's because they did something wrong and we let them go, or we had to enforce the contract because they weren't doing right. I think that we do good about spreading it around, and for me, I will be supporting the substitute motion because, number one, it's not that much of a difference. Number two, this is a small project. And the last project we awarded to RJM, that was a big project. So, let's spread it around.
On that, I'll call the...
Mr. Mayor,
Wait. Yes, sorry.
I apologize. We have had a request to speak on this item from the public.
Okay.
When you're ready for that. Jim Gardner?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, staff. My name is Jim Gardner. I live on Lake One, and I'm a director and past president of Lake One's homeowner association. And if you didn't know, Lake One pretty much virtually surrounds Village Pond Park. I wanted to mention that we have worked for several years with a company called PACE, and PACE is the subcontractor that is going to use on their project. PACE is, I think they're a Huntington Beach company, but they know our lake, they know the pond. They're now busy working on the lagoon. I don't know if you know that we're rebuilding our lagoon, $1.5 million. Be a big, luxurious addition for Lake Forest. In any event, we've had nothing but good results working with PACE, and as I said, the pond, they know the situation, so I'm not officially empowered to recommend them to you because I didn't know this was coming up. Kind of caught me by surprise. In any event, I have no problems recommending them and saying they've done an outstanding job for us, and we continue working with them. So.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Robinson.
I would like to hear a little bit from staff on just what some of the thought process was, if there was anything just beyond the statistical numbering here and the review that was done.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The process that is undertaken in a project this nature is applications-based. It's not predicated on the actual bid amount. That's a secondary issue. You do not look at that necessarily until after you have determined who is the most qualified proposer, and consequently you can't take that into account. However, it's not initially what drives the decision. In this instance, clearly, when you look at that chart, there is some anomaly when you look at those numbers. I did inquire of staff as to the process as well as some of the issues that were involved in this. Now, I've heard from some members of the council already as it relates to some of the issues that I have heard that I think was pertinent. One of them is that clearly we have had the history here of ensuring that we always get as many bids and as quality of bids as possible. So if you keep giving the same bid to the same company, same type of work, then you sort of have a chilling effect on the bidding process. So clearly that certainly plays into their minds somewhat. I think in the staff report, as was just pointed out by the last speaker, one of the concerns particularly for this project was the pond. And the contractor that is a sub to Nuvis is particularly qualified for that project. So that played a factor into their decision making. I also think that clearly when you look at the quality of the work that Nuvis has done for the city in the past, I believe they were very comfortable that this contractor could fulfill the responsibilities of the job. They were responsible for designing all of the El Toro Road and the Arbor area that you see. So the city does have a relationship that we've had with Nuvis over an extended period. We tend not to look at ensuring that the same company gets the same piece of work all the time. We do try to spread that around for the reasons that I articulated. How these numbers come out is simply the math that drives it. And the individual raters do not sit and talk with each other and decide what the numbers ought to be. They do that in a blind so that we don't have sort of a group think process, so that there is a methodology that is used in order to come up with what they independently believe is the best qualified firm. RJM clearly is a qualified firm. They do marvelous work for us, as well as Nubis in the past. Both of those are firms that the staff feels comfortable with. You need to break ties somehow, and consequently what we articulated is what I believe the staff has conveyed to me as some of the reasons still within the purview of the City Council to decide what you'd like to do.
Thank you, sir. On that, I'll call a vote. No. Councilman Robinson.
In looking this, I just want to make it really clear that the dollars are always important to me. So, $1,000 is $1,000 earned. It's hard. We're all out there trying to do it. I want to make sure that I'm a good steward of everyone's tax money. I'm going to be looking at that closely. As I look at this particular item, especially what I've heard about the subcontractor that would be involved, that's going to play in pretty significantly to my decision as well. But I just want to make it clear that I think that all of us are trying to be really good stewards of tax dollars, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we're spending your money properly.
Thank you, Councilman Robinson. I'll call the vote.
And this is the vote on the substitute motion to accept staff's recommendation.
I think we called the vote on the first.
The substitute motion is heard first.
Okay, thank you.
We are allowed to make a comment. One of the things is that I heard Mr. Jim Gardner came up and my decision was not made by his comment, but that helped make me more comfortable, because we're going to need to work with the homeowners association in order to get this project done. So both sides has got to be very comfortable with who's going to be doing this project also. And since I didn't, when he made the statement about PACE, I had forgotten that portion, and that's another reason that I will be supporting the substitute motion.
Thank you. I'm calling the vote for the substitute motion.
Councilmember Herzog?
Yes.
Councilmember Nick?
No.
Councilmember Robinson? Aye. Mayor Pro Tem McCullough?
Yes.
Mayor Voigt?
No.
Motion passed.
Next item.
Agenda item 13, contractual services agreement with the Lake Forest Chamber of Commerce, submitted by Assistant City Manager and removed from the consent calendar by Jim Gardner, member of the public.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is still Jim Gardner. I want to support, in general, the Chamber of Commerce. I see there are Chamber people down here. They're great people, and we have our own chamber now. It's a great thing. So nothing I'm going to say here is against the council. On the other hand, Councilman Robinson just talked about spending our money wisely. And I think we could be looking at what I said at the last time I was up here, KPI, key performance indicators, when we go to a contract like this. For example, they hold monthly roundtables. Terrific. But it would be nice to know if that expanded businesses, if people signed up for services. They do the Taste of Lake Forest, but it would be nice to know when you're letting contracts like that, whether or not more people use the restaurants. Maybe you could have a coupon system or something like that. They're setting up an online directory for Lake Forest businesses. That's great, but wouldn't it be nice if we knew how many visitors there were, how many unique visitors, how many click-throughs there were, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to do the How to Work with the City workshop, and thank you very much, Councilman Robinson, for that. Be nice to know how many people attended, how many businesses attended, what proportion of the people who attended applied for city businesses, what types of businesses, how many succeeded. And that goes back to my long-standing gripe that less than 5% of our budget is spent in Lake Forest. Be nice if we were looking at those things. et cetera, et cetera. So it's all good. I'm happy to see everything that they're doing, and I know many of them personally, and I believe this is a good thing. But I would like to see in contracts, whether it's to the chamber, and I'm not picking on them, or anybody, but again, as Councilman Robinson said, to spend our money wisely, and that means looking beyond just going out and giving a workshop, putting up, sending out a brochure, et cetera, et cetera. There was one thing in all of that, though, that disturbed me, and that was on page 13, item E, deletes the words directly to a Lake Forest food vendor. That's obviously the same Scrooge that keeps our spending in Lake Forest. I don't think there's anything wrong with requiring in the contract that it go to a Lake Forest food vendor. I think you require that. And why on earth that got deleted, and I hope it was deleted by mistake, it seems to me that that should be in there. Otherwise, I'm completely in support of everything, but I'd like a little more data. Thank you very much.
Anything further from the public?
We've had no further requests.
Bring it back to the council. Yeah, we're opening up discussion on this stage. You have something?
I move approval of the contract.
She's
staff recommendation.
She's got a comment.
That's fine.
I can second that, but I still have a comment, okay?
No.
I will be supporting this motion, but I do have a comment. In the contract, there's a portion in there that the chamber can't have political things around, and it was brought to my attention that I enjoyed the fair very much, but there was some political signs out when we were at Outback Steakhouse, and so I would like for us to just make sure that when we're having something that doesn't happen, you know, because I want to see this contract approved every time, and I want to see our grow. They're doing an excellent job, and I want them to keep doing an excellent job. And when it comes to political science, I don't want anybody to trip you up because they're doing something that is against your contract that you have. So let's make sure we take care of that. Thank you. I'll call for the vote.
Actually,
wait.
we got more comment. Yeah. Councilman Robinson.
Just for my own clarification, I'd appreciate if staff would just kind of share their thoughts with respect to that. The way I read the contract, the way I read the contract, it states that the dollars that the city provides aren't supposed to be provided for that, but that any dollars that they generate in any other way they can use in any form they want. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. I still would encourage the same thing, just that council member or Mayor Pro Tem McCullough is suggesting, but I don't think the contract calls for that. The one point that I would like to clarify, another thing that the contract doesn't state is that you have to support everything we do. If the chamber feels like we're doing something that isn't business friendly, I want you to feel free to come to the mic and tell me that I'm wrong. So I don't want you to be timid or worried about that, because that's what I view a chamber as being, and that's just my personal opinion. You guys get to make the decision on your mission is, but I want you to be out there supporting the businesses, and if you think I'm doing something wrong, come to the mic and tell me, and don't be worried about what impact it might have. That's how I think that we're going to have a strong and vibrant chamber here in town, so that's my only comment.
We do have a strong chamber.
And on that, I'd like to say that I've been very proud and pleased with the activities and the people that are involved with the chamber, because they're the hardest working volunteers that any chamber could ever have, and so I'm extremely proud of you guys as a chamber. I'm pleased to be working with you, and I thank you for welcoming us as new council members on and pushing forth a pro-business agenda. Keep us true, and if we do have a problem, please come to us and come to the mic or call us personally, because we expect that out of you. So I thank you for the relationship that we have. You guys have been truly a blessing to the city. I would like to ask, was there a reason directly to the city food vendors, since it's Lake Forest Chamber, do you have any problem with putting city food vendors back into the contract? Yes, sir.
Mayor, members of the council, I think that provision is being misunderstood. The chamber always uses Lake Forest businesses for its events. The reason for that change is because we share food responsibility costs with the chamber on certain events.
Yeah. Yes,
and
we do.
If the chamber's taking the lead, they solicit the bids and retain the Lake Forest food vendor. There was an original provision that required that we pay our share directly to the food vendor, even though the chamber has that vendor under contract. So we would still be using Lake Forest food vendors, and just instead of the city paying the vendor directly, we'd be paying the chamber who has the vendor under contract.
Thank you for that clarification. With move the item, call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations and thank you, Lake Forest Chamber.
Agenda item 18, request for proposal for light display services, submitted by Director of Community Services and removed from the consent calendar by Mayor Voights.
Yes, this is something that I brought forth a few years ago, and I've been very, very pleased with the outcome and the excitement that it has brought to the city. And we're talking about the holiday lights along El Toro Road. All of us want to live, shop, and dine in Lake Forest, and between the month of November and the month of January is upwards of 80 to 95% of the income for retail and restaurantees. So anything we can do to spruce up and make Lake Forest a more pleasant place to be during the holidays, and when the majority of people are spending their money, is a good thing. So with that, I'd like to make the comment that I'm very excited to have this on here. I'd like to have a few things added in there. On the page 303, we have the display for the months of December and January. It would technically be November through January because they go up on the Thanksgiving weekend. So I'd like to include November on item number 1 on page 303. Yeah, Thanksgiving, yeah. It's technically Thanksgiving through January, because we got January in there, which we shut them off just after January 1st, but we have January, so I'd just like to include that, because that's I would like to see them light up. And that one, and then on page 304, we have the scope of the work for year-round lighting displays on the arbor structures. I'd like to include also the bus stop structures along El Toro Road and put those up as permanent lighting. I think it would take away the up and down of taking those down. I think it would light up like El Toro Road a little bit. So I think that would be a beautiful addition. And last but not least, this is what I see. We have the trunk and interior wraps. I'd like to see, or at least I'd make the motion that the trees are wrapped with white lights on the trunks, on the center medium trees, but wrapped with multicolored lights on the hanging or dangling lights on the center mediums. Just add some spruce to that, and I'd like to make that request, and I see if I could get approval with that on the motion.
If I could just inquire. As I understand, this is the RFP, and then they'll come back with an actual program that then we would be approving as far as any contract that's given. So wouldn't they be coming back with various design options?
Mr. Members of the council, certainly they would be coming back. The intent here is to ensure that the city has a maximum view of like, and then cost that out, and later on you'd be able to reduce things if you felt the number was too high. Our recommendation, I guess, would be whatever the city council wants to have as a minimum within that process, you'd probably want to call out as a specification in the RFP itself. So if you wanted to have the absolutely, rather than being an option, for there to be colored lights, for example, and if that's a minimum you want to ensure is there, then you'd probably include that, because I'm not sure, unless directed, that the responders would necessarily think of that issue. So if you want it, you'd probably call that out. But in terms of whether or not you'd want to have something year-round on the bus shelters, we could add that to it, because that's optional at this juncture as it relates to the structures. So it's really council's desire.
Yeah, I mean, I would add the bus, you can have those in there as far as scope of year-round work as sort of bullet point 3 as an option, so we can get the price breakdowns, too. There's certainly far more bus stops than arbor structure.
Councilman Robinson?
Yeah, that's how I'd like to do it. We just kind of throw that out at this point and then look at the costs. I would support what Mayor Voights is suggesting. Not that we're necessarily going to move forward with it at this point, but that we at least have an idea of what the cost is going to be. And that's I support the overall idea here. I do want to make sure that we're spending money wisely. Absolutely. My other question for staff is just, do we see this as being an ongoing expense, whatever it might be, or are we going to have some benefits from buying lights, or do we see this just basically diminishing in costs a little bit, over the subsequent years?
I guess I would defer to staff particularly, and I see that Mr. McGill's going to hand it off again, but let me say this. I think this is really predicated on let's call it a rental system on an annualized basis, so we're not really buying the lights. You're fundamentally leasing them for that period, with the exception of the arbor structures. If you have those year-round, we probably buy those, but the things that would go up seasonally, you may not purchase. But I'll defer to the staff. Does that answer it?
That's correct. We don't buy the lights.
So would we anticipate like a $20,000 a year expense moving forward if we were to continue with what things look like at this moment?
Well, based on what we did last year, because you recall, as we identified in the report, the first year we sort of started and looked at it and thought, well, we could do better, and we went out and actually got bigger. What you saw last year was about $20,000. And so the thought here is to see if we did everything, what would it cost you? And if it exceeds 20, but that's your number, then we'd start cutting things out until you got to the 20. And if you wanted to keep it at 20 on an annual basis, then certainly that would be the idea. As the council feels that, that's maybe a little bit too much, you could reduce it or you could increase it. It's really a function of what the council believes. But the staff thought the best way to approach this is to get a number that includes everything, and then you can kind of see what the scope of that cost would be. But unless council changes its policy, I think you'd consider this an annual expenditure.
Okay. One thing that might be helpful for me then moving forward would be to get something more than just my anecdotal comments that I'm receiving from businesses, but to have some idea of what businesses in the area feel that this is a benefit or not. And I don't expect a really in-depth report of any kind, but just something beyond the few comments that I get, because I'm probably going to get mainly the positive ones. So I just want to make sure that I'm looking at it in totality. And, like I said, I support overall the lighting. I don't have any problem with that. I think that it does provide a little festive look to that part of town. I think it could get out of control if we decided we wanted to start lighting every single bus stop and every single street corner in town, and that's not something that I would support. So the more information I can get, the better as we're moving forward with this. Thanks.
Any further comments?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a couple, and some I need some answers to. Number one, you said that we don't buy lights, is what Gary McGill says. And Bob, over here, you say you don't have a grip on exactly how much, but at least 20,000, but after you look at the whole thing. This is my concern. When you're looking at the whole picture, I'd like for you to look at the picture and see if it's less expensive to purchase the lights and then get a maintenance contract and then replace it as needed if we're going to do this ongoing, like the permanent lights at the arbor and the permanent lights on the bus stops. Also, something else that I'd like for you to look into, I'd like to put something else there. I don't know if I need a knot or not, is some of the businesses that's along El Toro Road would like to put lights in, the white lights. all year round, or inside there on different portions. And we may want to look at that. I remember when we went out looking, even when I went to different restaurants and things, they asked how come they couldn't put the lights up. So since the Arbor is one of our designated places in our city, we need to consider, and when we get to the sign ordinance, that's something that that we need to look at that Arbor, in fact, on both sides of the streets, if we want to come up with some guidelines of them being able to put lights on their buildings all year long, and especially during the holiday time. Because where there's lights, it softens, and it also draws people, and they're willing to stay and shop longer. If it's dim and bleak looking, I don't want to be there. There's some crazy person could be in there trying to harm me. But if there's plenty of lights, I want to be there. I mean, I don't know if men think like that, but the average woman out there, I know we think like that. If it's like this, that we're going to feel safer, whether we are or not, we're going to feel it. So I think we need to look at this on a broader spectrum instead of doing the same old thing. We're going to rent lights just for this year, $20,000. Talking about being penny wise, I think we should be wise on this and concern ourselves with maybe purchasing and having a maintenance contract for upkeep on the ones that's going to be all year round. And then let that person that's maintenance let us know when we need to replace. And so I like to get some money, get the values on which way is going to be less expensive but efficient. Just throwing it out there.
Thank you. Anything further? Councilman Nick?
No, I just want to move this along.
All right. With that, I call the vote on the amendments.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just so that we're all on the same page here. In terms of the issue of ownership, I think it may take a modification to the RFP. So if this is the council's direction, then what we might do is rewrite that section to provide the option for either ownership or rental, and different components of that, either being including the lights that would go down the median islands and or the arbor structures and the bus shelters, so that you can look at the numbers in terms of ownership versus rental. There are other operational considerations and problems related to them putting up our lights and liability issues versus their own. So you'd want to consider more than just the dollars. But we could write the RFP to give you some options to look at that, and the staff would probably, once we see what those numbers are, be able to provide you some additional information related to the liability issues associated with those going up and down and who owns them and so forth. The other point would be whether or not, I'm not sure I heard whether or not the council, and if this is your motion, to ensure that as an option or as a minimum that there be colored lights. If you want that as an option, then we'll write that in and you can see whether it changes the dollar or not, or if you want to ensure colored lights regardless of cost, then we'd want to know that now as well in whatever your motion might be.
Just addressing my portion as far as the purchasing or renting, that was my suggestion of the amendment as far as purchase was on the permanent lighting that you're going to put at the arbor or the bus stop. That's the suggestion. I wasn't talking about across the board. If you feel like doing that and they give you permission, you can get 3 permissions, go right ahead. But I'm just concerned about why would we rent lights that we're going to keep at the arbor and put at the bus stops. If we're going to do that year-round, just get a maintenance contract. That's what I was saying. Not purchase all the lights. That's your option.
That's why I sought clarification.
Thank you. I felt you were fishing for that. That's why I gave it to you.
Councilman Herzog?
Yeah, my comment would be, I think keep everything as an option so we can evaluate those.
Yep.
It seems to be morphing all along, so I would just like to have as many options as possible as opposed to anything set. And so then, whatever options people want to throw in are fine. We'll take a look at them. But, I think at this point it's way too early to set something in concrete.
The only thing I would like to, I support Mayor McCullough, or Mayor Pro Tem McCullough's, that the arbor and the bus stop structures are our lights, so they're up. Is that So we're not renting on a monthly basis or something from that? Is he correct?
I believe the suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem McCullough had was that you get an option for either rental or purchase of the arbor structures and the bus shelters, and that would be the only thing.
That'd be great.
The balance of it, that would mean the meeting islands would be the rentals.
Yes. Okay. So I call for the motion. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Yeah, we support. Aye.
Aye. And with that, that brings us to discussion action items. The following matters are for the City Council consideration and action. Members of the public may have the opportunity to address these items if they wish to do so. Please complete a request to speak form and give it to the City Clerk or Deborah Rose. And Madam Clerk?
Agenda item 19, request for proposals for solid waste collection services and authorization to solicit proposals, submitted by the Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a brief overall presentation for this initially, if we can move to that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you. I'd like to be the first to wish you a happy Public Works Week. But I'm sure maybe perhaps many others have wished you that. But yeah, sure.
Right.
But actually, one of the most important issues that Public Works deals with in our field is solid waste, and so it's appropriate to be talking about this tonight. Our current franchise is expiring, and I'd like to just briefly walk through the current staff report that we have. We have I'll apologize for the size of the RFP, but it is a very important issue. The RFP is especially important because it affects every address that we have here in the city. Every resident, every business is going to be affected by this change. So we want to make sure we do it right. And with that, I'd like to introduce our consultant, Mr. William O'Toole. He's with Economics, and come on up. He's prepared to answer any of the detailed questions that you may have, and I'll walk through this. But the direction that we gave to Economics when we started this process was create a new franchise agreement that's going to meet the minimum state requirements at the very lowest cost. And but yet it had to be flexible enough to really meet the city's needs for the next 10 years. The next 10 years is the proposed term of the contract, or the franchise. So with that, let's start with a little bit of background, and the conversation really starts with state mandates and single-purpose agencies, which we've talked a little bit about that in the last few weeks. But back in 1989, the state passed AB 939, which was required the cities to divert 50% of their waste stream to the landfills, or from the landfills. So you could reduce the waste, you could recycle it, you could reuse it, but you must reduce it by 50%. And that was fine, and we're currently in compliance of that. In 2008, SB 1016 modified the AB 939 requirements, and it changed the way that they calculated the diversion. And that's important because we had a great calculated diversion rate before. That's changing now, and how they calculate our diversion rate, and the state's taken a very strict look on how our calculation worked, and we're going to have to change and respond to those changes in this law. The other thing it did was it also now includes the number of recycling programs that the city performs as part of its system and part of how it audits us and determines how we're doing. So before it was just a pure calculated number they didn't care how many recycling programs we had. Now it matters how many recycling programs and the effectiveness of those recycling programs, and the calculations changed. So then in October 2011, the state passed AB 341, which requires businesses and multifamily homes to recycle. At the same time, it also adopted a state policy goal that includes a 75% statewide waste diversion rate be met by the state by 2020. So it directed CalRecycle, which was the state agency formerly known as the Integrated Waste Management Board, to create these programs to implement these goals. So that was part of what the context of what we're trying to develop this franchise to respond to, in particular, those 3 laws. So we've went and had the consultant review the draft plan by Cal Recycle, so we have an idea what they're up to. They've actually met with the executive director of Cal Recycle to find out what things are in the works and how they're moving to best ascertain the direction and potential requirements that the state may require. And we try to include those items in the RFP in a way that we'd be able to address those issues if and as they become necessary. So we've included the items we believe to be necessary to comply with those existing laws, in particular AB 341, and then have a flexible way to respond to any new laws, which we have a pretty good idea are coming down the pike. So in this manner, what we're attempting to do is have the costs up front in a competitive environment where we can pick and choose and have them locked in. So as the state develops these things, we can issue and pick, and we have a menu with the costs already up front determined for us. It makes our negotiation points a lot easier than if we've already issued a franchise and we're trying to negotiate at that point to have somebody bring on some new exotic program. So that's the overall context of how we're trying to do that. And I'll touch upon a few of the issues that perhaps differ or received a little more attention than we have in past franchises. The first one is recycling in the commercial area. AB 341 requires new recycling. So our actual recycling rate in the commercial area right now, we recycle about 5% of the material in the commercial area. We have about 29% of businesses recycling in some fashion. AB 341 requires us to raise that 5% to 50% of the material, and requires 100% of the businesses to be involved in a recycling program. So we need to raise those numbers up to that, and we performed really an in-depth study to determine the level of effort required from a hauler to achieve that number, and determine that 2 recycling coordinators would be the minimum required for a hauler to assign to our city to be able to achieve that kind of increase. Currently we have 1 assigned to the city on a part-time basis. And we have the 5% results, and new law also to show for that. The proposed term, we're proposing an 8-year term with the possibility of winning 2 more extensions. Those extensions are based on what we creatively call Phase 1 and Phase 2. But Phase 1 is a very strict set of performance measures that if they meet it, then they win an additional year extension. And again, then we give them a second chance to win the second one, again, based on a performance set of strict performance measures. Makes it easier for us if they make it, they've earned another year. If they don't make it and they're not performing, well, then we'll shorten that. We believe that this is a really great financial incentive for a hauler to be able to do that, to extend their contract in that manner. In terms of the residential rates and what our residents will see, the residential program really remains about the same. They'll continue to provide recycling at no additional cost, the 3-bin system that we have. We will ask for a cost proposal on a optional food scrap waste program, so we have those prices in case we need to go with a residential food scrap waste recycling program. In the commercial sector, you'll see the biggest change, and I think what our businesses will see, the biggest change they'll see is more support for recycling. So more education, more people getting out there, educating their businesses in how they can recycle and how they can save money from recycling. I believe that'll be a big benefit to the businesses. And the second biggest change they'll see is a food waste program, working with the restaurants in particular to do that. The food waste currently makes up about 1/3 of our entire waste stream in the city. So it's a big area to touch on. Food is so heavy that you can get a lot of bang for your buck in those areas. I wanted to touch on the recycling and the costs. In our current franchise, we provide for what we call free recycling in the commercial area. We have about a 5% recycling rate. And the way it's set up now is you pay, a business would pay through, or does currently pay through, the amount of trash that they haul. and the recycling is free. So the trash is subsidizing the recycling. For every ton or bin or whatever that a business recycles, our haulers lose money. So there's a financial disincentive to provide free recycling. Makes sense. With the new state rules going into effect, or laws going into effect, as we require more and more recycling, you can imagine 50% recycling, the trash, in order to pay for what we'll call in quotes free recycling, the trash rate would be so huge because you have 2 trips, 2 systems, it's going to cost twice as much. So what we want to do is spread that out, or we're proposing to spread that out and have actual cost for what they're doing. Now, actual cost is hard to determine. We wanted to have a system that would allow for an apples-to-apples comparison, and yet provide a financial incentive for the haulers and a financial incentive a financial incentive for the business owners. So we've set the financial or set the rates at 50% of the trash hauling rate. So if trash is $1 a trip or $1 a ton, then your recycling rate would be 50 cents a ton. The haulers, we've done some detailed studies on this, and the haulers, we believe, will still be able to make money. They can sell that recycling material. Business owners still get a benefit by a discount on their trash rates, and we believe that it's a financial system that sets up a win-win and also spreads the cost. So we don't have any Proposition 218 issues with certain rate payers subsidizing for recycling programs and things of that nature. The other change is we're moving towards a single franchise agreement. We've had the last agreement was a residential franchise and a commercial franchise owned and operated by the same hauler. Making one agreement just makes it more cost effective to administer, easier for staff, easier from a public outreach standpoint, and from recycling happening and the message. We don't want 2 haulers trying to do that. And there's economies of scale with one hauler being in the city, being able to take care of some of these programs. Commercial or construction and demolition remains the same. It remains open competition. Let's see, I think the last issue I wanted to just touch upon was the schedule, proposed schedule. So tonight we're talking about this. If council were to consider and authorize staff to solicit RFPs, we have a mandatory pre-proposal meeting the first week of June, and then we'd request written questions on the RFP. We're treating this contract much like we do a public works bid, in the sense of we have a single point of contact, we have everything in writing, and anything we do goes out. If we're to make a change or answer a question or anything like that, it goes out as a bid addendum to all the haulers at one time. So there's no one-on-one conversations or anything like that. It's all open and upfront. And we're proposing to have proposals due in August, and evaluation of the proposals, obviously bringing that. We're looking at a September award date with a May 1st, 2014 start date, which would coincide with the current franchise expiring. If I can, just the RFP is rather large, as I'm sure you all have noticed. I'm not going to go through it in any detail. Just wanted to point out a few key things: the background, technical requirements, the business arrangements, the proposal requirements are all in there, along with a lot of information that all the haulers need about our existing city, how much trash is out there, how many residents, all the numbers that they'll need for historical purposes. I would like you to point out page 360 is our proposed process integrity rules. And basically this is a summary saying we have a single point of contact, which is staff. Everything must be in writing. Keep this upfront. Keep this process fair. It's a big contract. We expect a lot of interest, and we want to make sure that it's a fair and open competition for everyone. And so we've included those rules. It's part of the RFP, or will be part of the RFP once the council approves and authorizes us to solicit proposals. Like I said, staff is certainly here to answer any questions that you may have. William O'Toole has been doing this for a long time. He's an expert in the field, and that's why we have him on board. And with that, we'd be open to any questions that the council may have.
So I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem. I didn't know if we had public comments.
We've received no requests.
Makes it easy.
Okay, I need to make a little statement before I start. Adam Nick is not texting. He's looking at the agenda on his iPhone.
iPad.
At iPad because it's easier for him. The same as Bob Dunick is doing,
Same thing as you, sir.
and the same as you. Yeah, yeah. So that's for anyone that may be
And I
concerned.
love-
We want to make sure we stay legal because there have been suits and problems with council people texting at the dice. So we want to make sure that he's not texting. Else I would be getting him and taking his phone. Okay.
I would not dare. I word search feature because you can just go to the page right away.
Okay. Don't be taking up my time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I have quite a few things here, and so you can answer them all at once, or however. Number one, I seen in the report that you factored in AB 939 and SB 1016 and AB 341, and as you know, the Assembly Bill 323 may or may not pass. We do need, as a body here, to put in an opposition letter because of because of this being put in. This bill is okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'll wait. Because of this bill, it would be trying to take away the green waste out of that benefits us in all the landfills, which would make us lose that 14% that we have. So this council hasn't put in opposition, put a letter in of opposition, and we need to do that first of all. And second of all, for staff, if we are coming up with these factors, how are we factoring in that this bill may not pass, and are we factoring in the other three bills as far as within this contract? I'm not through. You can get them all at once. Jot notes, okay? And that is something that I'm very concerned that we need to look at. Also, over here, I'm concerned on you're saying that this is going to balance out with the businesses when they're going to get credits for on the recycling. By them paying this, it's going to balance out and get them a deduction on the trash hauling itself. And if that is so, what about the ones that will not do it? Are they going to get penalized or not? That's something that I was concerned about. And I'll take a breath and give you a chance to respond, whichever is going to respond. Thank you for having so much patience standing there.
Thank you. I'll make the first attempt, and William, please jump in when I venture too far. AB 323, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually later on in your agenda is the opportunity for the council to vote no on that. The county has voted no already, the County Board of Supervisors. My understanding is every county in the state has gone away from the green waste except for Orange County.
And Los Angeles.
And Los Angeles County. So there's movement that way, but we will certainly, at council's discretion, send a letter of opposition. Yes, to answer your question, we have factored in all those three bills and what we believe will be coming down the pike with the various AB 323s, and also what Cal Recycle is doing in the future. We've talked with them. We have their draft plan, so we can anticipate as best as we can right now for that, and we can always back off, but we wanted to get the cost for the program, so we can add it in as we need. And just to clarify, we don't know what the bids will come in at, so we can't say for sure that anyone will get a discount or anything with regards to recycling or not. The way we've set up the bids is the haulers will bid on trash, and there's different components that they bid on, but trash hauling, recycling will be set at 50% of the trash hauling. So assuming that the business, since we've only have 5% recycling right now, most businesses are not fully participating in the free recycling today, we believe with the financial incentive for all parties to increase the recycling, that instead of paying the full freight that they have been for waste hauling, they'll get the reduction in recycling more, and that's only 50% of the cost.
Second part, I'm quite sure that Carlos is keeping in touch with the State League. They've already been on top of this bill, because when it's tried to come out the Harper, we knew that it was a problem for cities. So I just would like for us to make sure you keep us informed. The food scraps, I'm very interested in that, and I'd like to get a little bit more info on that. If you can just send something through in the weekly update explaining exactly. You don't have a lot of details on here how it's going to work, even though you sent me 1,000 pages.
Do you want the second 1,000 pages now or later?
Doesn't matter. I'm going to read it, but if I have to read another 1,000 pages to find out, they're going to suffer. So you can ask them if you want to send me some more.
If they suffer, I suffer.
Okay. They say they won't suffer, and so send it to me. I'd like to know more exactly how that's going to break down and be handled, and how you're going to dispose of it after you get through scrapping it. So that's something I'm interested in. Thank you. I'll pause for a moment. Here.
Yeah, I have several questions, and just sort of a preliminary comment as well. I mean, as was mentioned, this is rather long, to say the least, and I know for me personally, there obviously were several questions, and there'll be more coming. I am going to want to have this continued over to take into account what we learned this evening, and then to even, quite frankly, finish studying this. Been through 2 cycles of this already, and as was pointed out, this is a contract that touches every single address and every single business. So it's not an RFP to take lightly, shall we say? Of course, no pun intended. Sorry. But I do want to look at it, very, very thoroughly before even sending the RFP out. And along that line, we've kind of addressed or talked about, AB 323 changing some things. But I noticed in the staff report it says that the state is planning to discontinue many of the activities we're doing. Obviously, 323 would do that. What other activities are they talking about discontinuing?
The one I had in mind as I was writing that staff report was our calculations for our diversion is primarily made up of from 3 companies. So back in late 80s, 89 or early 90s, when AB 939 first passed, we did a waste characterization study. At that time, my understanding is they found 3 companies within the city that distribute a lot of material. They use their trucking system. They use wooden pallets to distribute that material. Wooden pallets are very heavy, so they'd send it out to the store, the grocery store, whatever. Wooden pallet would come back. Next day, ships back, comes back. Those wooden pallets were recycled. So the way the calculation worked is we get credit for not throwing them away every day. So in the formula, huge numbers. So that's why we're meeting our 76% diversion rate with no programs. The next bill, the 1016, came by and said, we're gonna straighten that out. We're not going to quite give you that much diversion. So when they change the calculation rate now, when you plug the pure numbers in, it shows our city. Correct me on the numbers, but I believe we generate, or it allocates 70,000 tons a year to our city. for our population. But the calculations show that we're actually diverting, according to the calculations, 90,000 tons. So the state kind of go, well, how can you divert more than you actually are even generating? So it doesn't work, because it goes back to that early waste characterization. So that's the primary thing that they're taking away and making us recalculate. So now all of a sudden we're looking at, we can't use that anymore. That was a fair way to do it back in the day. Now that's changing, so that's why we're adding and so many more programs to make up for that and do it that way. So that's primarily what that was meant to be.
And then, although there's this reference to the statewide 75%, if I understand it correctly, each city has to hit 75% recycling as well, or is that not true?
That is not true yet.
So what is going to be our target?
Well, let me defer to William on this.
Sure. You're correct that the state legislation right now is 75% diversion statewide, so it becomes a state goal. If you imagine it, though, the state of California, how can you get 75% statewide if you don't have each jurisdiction diverting 75%? Because, somebody diverted 100%, somebody diverted 50%, then you get to a 75%, and that's not going to happen. So the word that's been used is that probably that effect, that 75%, will cascade down to jurisdictions at some point. All the regulations that are tied into that 75% diversion also create a issue of how do you put programs together. And then there's the fundamental question underneath that, which is you no longer have a solid waste program. You have a diversion program. Because if you're throwing away only 25% and you're diverting 75%, the contractor that you select, you want them to be very good at being able to divert material, because taking it to a landfill is actually going to become 25% of their job. Nobody's really, except recycling nerds like myself, have looked at that and how it plays through. And the reason we were hired is we do look at that, and we have figured out how it will play through. And then that's what you've got in front of you is the contract you have, and there's a scope of work that goes with the contract, and there's performance measures that you can make that contractor do what's needed to be done, which is become a diversion company, not a solid waste hauling company. And it's phased, so you don't have to cost or spend more money on diversion until the state reg firms up and says, this is what you have to do. So those moving targets are what are incorporated into your contract.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, the state came up with this wonder number of 75%, but don't have any idea how to implement it.
No, they know how to implement it. It's just how to implement it statewide is the issue.
Okay, I guess that's just a distinction without...
Yeah, it's different. In other words, different sectors of California have got to 75 and 80%, and other sectors and areas of the state haven't. So how you get there is clear. The assignment in Lake Forest was, how do you get there at the pace that your political process and your cost structure wants to get there? So policymakers in the city of San Francisco said they wanted to go for zero waste. Well, you can't do that because of entropy, but you can get to 90%. So they made that policy decision. Lake Forest is going to make its policy decisions, and you needed a contract that would allow you to make the decision to meet the state's requirements, but not going out into the forefront of those requirements. You could stay right where you want to. And then the second difficulty, the trick on that was, so that means you're going to need programs sometime over the next 10 years. We didn't want the city to be in a position where It had to do something, but it didn't have a price to do it. And then that's why the contract has got all these provisions of tell us how many dollars per ton to do food scraps. And if you're going to do food scraps, are you going to use anaerobic digestion or are you going to use composting? And there's like a 10-to-1 price differential there.
And so what you're expecting then, I take it, is Cal Recycles, their infinite wisdom is creating a bunch of programs that they're going to tell everybody they have to do?
There'll be it's sort of like going to a buffet lunch, but you can't go anywhere else except for the buffet lunch, and you got to choose what's in front of you.
Okay. But then with this 75% recycle ratio supposed to be achieved by 2020 then, and like you said, if you don't only have all parts of the state involved, it's going to be hard to get there. So are we basically constructing our contract the requirement that they have to reach 75% by 2020?
Yes, you are.
It is?
You have a 50% absolute diversion requirement.
Right, yeah.
And you have all the other program options that are layered in there to get to the 75% when that becomes the state law. When that triggers and those regs finalize, you're going to have your programs and your cost.
Has Cal Recycle given any indication as to when they're going to have these regs and programs released for public consumption?
Yes, it's called 75% plan. It was released last May. It's going to go to the legislature on January 1, 2014. The legislature will look at said plan, give the agency the directions of what to focus on. All those programs are in that 75% plan. It's pretty laid out where it's going to go.
So then in our RFP, then, is that 75% plan that's circulating basically embedded in our RFP?
Yes, it's embedded in, but it's embedded in with the flexibility that you don't have to spend money until you absolutely have to spend money. Yes.
Okay. All right, I get it. And then there was the comment about the 2 recycling coordinators that, you're talking about full-time?
Yeah.
So 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year?
Why did we say that?
What are they going to be doing? I mean, our
To
cities,
put-
we got about 80,000 people, but 2 full-time employees. I mean,
That's reasonable. Question. Now, the answer to that is to actually put in programs. Right now, July 1, 2012, all the businesses in the city are supposed to be recycling that generate more than 4 yards of waste. Okay? So that's going to require very much a shoe leather kind of on-the-ground kind of implementation. And if you think about it, that's that would be like you had a product that you sell to every business in Lake Forest, and the product takes explanation, and the product has cost savings, but you have to fine-tune it, like how much do you put in this bin versus how much do you put in that bin. And then you have to have people go out and train it. So, as part of the second portion of information, we could give you actual time records of how much time it takes. We have contracts actually in several other cities where we do that function of getting the businesses to recycle, and Mission Viejo is one of them. And you could actually see the number of hours and the staffing levels. So we didn't pull that number out of the air. That's based with, I can give you all the background.
so then in the RFP, is it calling for this 2 full-time people to run around town trying to
Yes,
recycle things?
it is. And the other issue where that follows out of is a lot of cities have a requirement that they're supposed to have a full-time recycling person, but the person that's doing it has that commitment to 6 or 7 or 8 different cities. So what you're seeing is already difficulty in enhancing and enforcing your performance requirements. So we're making it very, very upfront clear that you need 2. And then the other thing is that it's a cost structure. Well, if you take those people, there'll be 60,000, 80,000 a year. And if you look at total multi-million-dollar contract, that's not a great deal. It's one of the most cost-effective ways that you can spend $60,000 to get that diversion that you're trying to get.
Now, in the residential component, currently we have the 3-bin program. I've heard of other cities doing a 2-bin program for whatever reason, and I'm not saying good, better, and different, but was there any discussion about which would be preferable?
Yes, there was a lot of discussion with staff, Tom, ourselves internally, and change is always difficult, and you have a system right now that works, and it's effective, and it's also flexible in that if you want to go into a food scrap program in 2015, and I'm going to swing back to your question on timing, your current three-container system works.
I guess what I'm concerned about is, the air quality people are going after trucks left and right. And in our particular air district, they even feel CNG is not an appropriate alternate fuel from partial emissions issues. And so we're having an interesting chat, shall we say, with the air quality people about trucking. And, quite frankly, they're very interested in not having trucks on the street. Unless they're electric, then they're okay. But otherwise, no.
And that's what we're looking.
This is 3 each time.
What we're looking is encouraging hybrid low particulate, which is where the Air Resources Board is going for trucking. So it is partly electric, and it uses low particulate diesel. The 3 trucks on the ground at the same time, it actually isn't 3 trucks, it's 1 truck, but it does drive more miles. It goes out in the morning and it picks up the trash, takes the trash to the landfill or the transfer station, and then it goes back out in the afternoon and picks up the recyclables, and then goes home to where they all live at night, and it's also usually where they process the recyclables. Did you want your timing question answered?
Sure.
Okay. 2014, January 1, 2014, like I said, is when that 75% plan goes from Cal Recycle, the agency, to the legislature. They'll kick it around for probably 9 months to a year. It'll bounce back out in a draft form early 2015. There'll be probably more back and forth, and what we've geared up is 2017 is where we actually expect everything to be locked down and clear. And probably at a level of detail that you don't want, but the incentive programs that we put in there of how they can get an extra year if they get certain program levels put in is tied into that expectation that 2017 is where it'll be locked down, and now we can just go, okay, do this. And we built it up leading up to that point so that when it becomes do this, you're not starting flat-footed or from ground zero. You've built it up to where you're ready to finish the job.
That's the phase 2.
Correct.
You look at it, that's where our new programs that are yet to be determined would go.
2017. Then you got 3 years.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
I'd like to call a 5-minute recess for necessity. So we'd break for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'd like to reconvene Lake Forest City Council meeting, so thank you for your patience. I'll bring it back to council. Councilman Robinson?
For the public, the first thing I want everyone to be aware of is that what this means is the state's just going to drive your trash rates up. They might not be doing it right now, but it's going to happen. That's what's happening here, and there's no question about it. So every single person in this room, every single person in this city needs to be contacting the legislature and explaining what kind of impact this is going to have on your daily life, because it's going to be a big one. One thing that was discussed was food waste, and I wanted to have a little bit more explanation on just kind of what some of the thoughts were. You mentioned basically the microbiology part as opposed to the composting and like a 10-to-1 ratio, but maybe if you just elaborate on that a little bit more and kind of what some of the programs are that are out there that are being used right now. And
Sure. So why does the state care about food waste would be the first question. 2 reasons. It weighs a lot, and when it rots in the landfill, it's not the best thing for the landfill either. So there's 2 ways you can take something, and you can either compost it, and that's just controlled rotting in a pleasant way, or you can put it in a steel vessel and completely enclose it and digest it. And as you digest it, it generates methane, which then you can drag off and use as fuel to generate electricity. What you're left with after you do that is you still have then 40 to 60% of it left that you have to do something with again. And as you can probably tell, I'll be completely open, I'm not a huge fan of that high-tech approach because I think it costs a lot more than the composting will. And then you'll hear and read in the state that there isn't a composting infrastructure, and that is true in Southern California. You do, though, have landfill sites that would be a permitting snap to get the composting, and then they get a private company to operate that composting on your landfills. So that's sort of the short and the long of it. The county came out with a cost estimate for the composting ratio to the AD was about that 10-to-1 figure, so I just thought I'd use, I'm not sure how they got their numbers, but the ratio, no matter how you finally arrived at it, it's about right for what the processing sources are. The commercial side is easy to get the food waste out. It already goes into a bin. It's already been done. The first programs were put in about 2005, 2006. It's proven. It works. There's lots of immediate objections, but when you talk it through and think it through, you can reach a conclusion, okay, yeah, it can be done. The first one usually is, well, it's smelly, it's going to draw vectors, et cetera, and you go, wouldn't you rather have it in a closed container dedicated to the food scrap as opposed to sitting in the bin with the rest of the stuff drawing the same rats and flies? And actually, the situation improves when you start focusing on getting it out. That's the
I have a little bit of business knowledge in this area because I'm in the export of feed, the business of exporting feed. So I actually deal with some byproducts from the food processing industry. So that is one other potential opportunity that there might be in some cases to process it for animal feed.
That is correct. Yeah. And there's a company in Corona that's really pushing that.
Sure. When I look at the commercial side, AB 341 and basically the implementation of that, and then looking at the numbers here, I think that it's going to be a fairly easy sell to businesses that you're taking, because they should see a cost reduction in my mind in their trash. Because right now, if 95% of them are putting everything into a trash bin, they're paying per ton. If they divert 20% of it, to something they're paying 50% of the cost of, then they have a cost saving. So I think it would be easy. I think when we get to the residential side and we get to that food waste bin and the residents are having to pay for it, I don't see what incentive they're going to have to take it out of their 96-gallon bin right now and put it in the food waste bin unless it's out of social responsibility, civic duty, something like that. So, and if they're having to pay more, I think that the number of users is probably going to be pretty small. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are with that, but
My thoughts on that is that's why I pushed it all the way out to 2017. It's just, I think other jurisdictions, they already are experimenting with it, they're already learning, and they want to do that, and that's good. And when another 4 or 5 years of experience, maybe it'll be more clear how to do it in a cost-effective manner.
Okay. And again,
it doesn't really get you that much out of the residential side either. It's out of the restaurants. That's the real area.
And it seems like that's what the real push is in this RFP, is to try to get more restaurants involved and
that's correct.
And so forth. So if there's a cost for it, though, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to have to be some at least comparable to what they're doing currently. If they're currently putting in just a regular trash bin, it's going to have to be comparable. If it costs more, unless there's a full-on mandate coming from either this council or the county or the state or whatever, compelling them to do it, I think it's going to be pretty hard to get them to buy into paying more out of, again, social responsibility and civic duty. So, that's just my main comments. With respect to the 2 full-time people, I'm just trying to figure out what they're going to do. I'm sure they're going to be busy at the beginning, but for 10 years, 2 full-time people just knocking on doors over and over again. From a staff perspective, we're going to be hearing it because businesses are going to be saying, "Great, now there's a guy knocking on my door. Not only have you hired 2 people, and my rate's going to go up because now we're having to spend more money, but now I'm going to have someone at my place of business who is responsible for all of this now, who currently isn't. We just throw things in the bin, and so now on top of everything else, we had to create this now, part-time position of, dealing with recyclable stuff. So we're going to hear it for sure. There's no question about it. And I think that from my perspective, the coordinated response from us needs to be that this is a ridiculous state mandate, and between now and the time that it hits the legislature, again, every single person that is hearing about it needs to be talking to their legislators. Not just, our legislators are probably going to be good with it. It's people from outside of our area, and just bombarding them with, how ridiculous this is, because it's going to have a major impact on all of us. So.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. As I told you, I would be back. Okay. Number one, I'm definitely not comfortable with the 2 people 24/7, but I'm from Missouri originally, the Show Me State, so you're going to have to show me that great of a need in a city this size is going to be something we have to do. Okay. And I will be on it. You can ask Waste Management and any other trash haul around. I will trail trucks. Okay. I'm back to the point of the 3 trips. You said it's not 3 trucks, it's 3 trips per truck, for that truck. And that you said they will be able to go further, like you're going to use a larger truck? Was that what you implied, that you would be using a larger truck? Because you said it would go more distance, picking up more, and then go dump and come back 3 times, 2 other times, so there's a total of 3. And that means you're going to be running those big heavy trucks over my streets 3 times, and that means that I'm going to have to repave my road more frequently, and that doesn't warrant me a discount? I got a problem with that too. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at that. And also you said three things, but about maybe 7-8 years ago there was a 4th thing that came before you got to these 3 ways of disposing scraps, and they even used it in people's homes. They were worms that eat the scraps. Remember that? About 7 years ago?
Yes.
And that was very economic, and it was efficient. But when you talk about the worms or the compost, well, the worms ate it pretty fast, so it was less smell than the compost. That's not even should be considered. But it was more efficient than letting it decompose. So those are some things that I'm looking at, and I'm going to, you said you're going to send me more. You don't have to send me quite 1,000 because this was only 814. But if it takes you 1,000 in order to explain so I can get a clearer picture, because right now I have a lot of things that I'm concerned about and I'm not comfortable with and I'm not sold. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Obviously, my council members have drilled you fairly convincingly that we're not for these mandates, whether it be AB 323, AB 341, 1016. The fact is that we're being drenched by this, and it's our people that are going to be paying the extra added costs. And one of the things that it really caught my eye, 2 employees at $60,000 to $80,000 a year, let's say $80,000 a year, isn't there a saturation point? So do you have a weaning point to where after we have actually educated the businesses in our city that there will be a weaning off of that 2-person employee?
You can do that,
Yeah.
definitely.
But that's not in there at this time, correct?
There is a section in there, it's called a change of scope contract section. So, and it's in there so you can either dial it up or dial it down.
Okay. Because obviously there will be an oversaturation, where we've got the message out, that they've been to the business, and, how many times, hopefully the business will start complying if that mandate actually ever comes to fruition. Now, do you ever see it coming into the residential to where we as residents are going to be food recycling too?
Again, we put it in your contract in 2017-ish is when it would be looked at. The way it's done is the food scraps go into the yard waste.
The where?
Go into the yard waste container, because the yard waste and the food scraps.
So that'd be the green waste?
Yeah.
It would go with green waste.
Okay.
And it just,
So that'd be a compost waste?
and it just becomes, the green
So
waste
we can start
is
just keeping
compostable.
our greens containers at the side for our own compost mix.
And actually, I've always thought that if you like worms, it'd be a great way to cut your trash bill down.
All right. I'm bringing it back to Councilman Herzog. He has another question for you. Thank you.
I think you just answered it. So then this entire concept of this residential food waste aspect is not going to require a 4th bin?
That is correct.
Okay, so there will still be the 3 bins.
It would be just
And if I may, it's optional at this stage. We're just, in anticipation, we wanted to get a cost. We don't have to implement, it's not locked in. Right, okay.
I got that, but as you know, I have such faith in the state, so...
I'm going to keep repeating it.
But, obviously, if we're going to add a 4th bin, that could cause a whole host of other problems. But,
No, that's, the 4th bin is not.
of course, the problem is now you're going to need more bins, I guess, though, because a lot of us fill up to 95-gallon with green waste. If you got to start throwing food in there, all of a sudden, we're not going to have enough room. So there actually is some issues to deal with. And then also, a lot of the housing, particularly the newer housing that's being built, there's not much in the way of area to put bins, particularly not 95-gallon ones. They seem to be getting closer and closer and closer, and less room, and all this kind of stuff. So, and we actually had that problem going to 3 originally in some locations in town, although it worked out, but so I'm not, but, this whole green waste thing could create some problems in light of how it might in 2017 come about. So, and then the other thing, just to chime in, I don't know if you have sort of like a job description or some sort of scope of work for these 2 people that are going to be running around the city.
Yes, it's in there.
Is it? Okay, somewhere.
And we'll highlight it so you can.
So, and with that, I would like to move that this item be continued to our first meeting in June to digest, no pun intended, all this material, and see if we have other questions for you.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? That is Hey, I actually...
I want to say, wait, I didn't have he didn't answer one of my things I gave
Real
him.
quick, I'll just chime in.
Go right ahead.
On that green waste, are we allowed to put food items in the green waste at this time?
Not at this time.
So is there a change of we're thinking that that's going to be more sanitary 3 years from now or 4 years from now than it would be now?
It's more where it goes after it gets picked up. Right now, that yard waste, green waste goes to landfill. As a thing in the jargon of the trade, it's an alternative daily cover. So they use the yard waste, trash goes down, they put the yard waste mixed in with dirt and gravel and make what they call a cell, a little cell. And if you put food waste in there, it would be not meeting the needs to make it a cell. It makes it more garbage.
Mayor Pro Tem.
You may have forgotten, I asked you about, you stated that the trucks were going to be able to go further, and how is it going to go further and pick up more if it's not a larger truck?
Yep, I garbled
You didn't answer that.
So let me try that again.
Yeah, please.
The truck goes out in the morning and it picks up, it's dispatched, and they have a certain number of trucks, and it goes out to pick up usually the trash on the first route out. Then those trucks go back to the landfill or the transfer station. They empty out. Then same trucks go back out and pick up the recyclables in the afternoon. And then when they're done, they go back to their yard. And usually the yard is close to where they're preparing their recyclables for market. So truck in the morning goes out, fills up with trash, goes to the landfill, dumps it out. Now you got an empty truck. It goes back, picks up picks up the recyclables, and then takes the recyclable loads back to their yard where it dumps out and gets baled and so forth.
If I may, to answer your question.
Okay, but hold on. When you say recyclables, are you talking about the green waste and scraps, or are you talking about recyclables like newspaper, plastic, and stuff? Because unless I misunderstood you, I heard you earlier saying 3 trips once this is instituted. And is that correct? So they will be doing those and then the green waste with the scraps in it once this is implemented?
If you implemented food scraps.
I was just going to say, if I may, it's the current system we have now.
Okay, so
Nothing changes in terms of how we collect.
it's not going to be 3 trips on my road.
If there's 3 bins, which
You're
there are,
doing
then there's 3 trips.
Tearing up my concrete, making me have to recycle,
Correct.
redo that more frequently.
Which is what we're doing
That's more
now.
money.
Correct. So nothing changes. We have 3 bins now. We're collecting 3. We have 3 trips now to collect the 3 bins. That stays the same for the new proposal. The food waste, forget about that. We don't know about that yet.
Yeah.
That would be part of the 3rd bin anyways.
Larger trucks, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Same system you have.
Now, in reading what you claim these 2 people are going to be doing, it seems like on the front end they're going to be doing a lot of information, solicitation of people. Is the chamber still here? Because we have a chamber that stays in touch with all of our business, and a lot of stuff that you're charging me for $60,000, the chamber, well, they're in touch with our businesses. A lot of that, when they had their little meetings and stuff, they could say, okay, y'all, we got to do this. That information can be filtered that way. You may can help on the front end, but I don't believe that we need your 2 people for 10 years, $60,000 for 10 years when we got a very active chamber, but also many of our businesses, they have associations where they take and they work with each other in each one of the little complexes of the business structure. And they, beside belonging to the chamber and not belonging to the chamber, their individual associations, they meet and they talk and discuss what's going on concerning city economics and everything else. So I read the description, they're going to be doing this, they're going to be doing that, but it just doesn't set with me that we need 2 full-time people in my little tiny city at $60,000 to do what our people, our chamber, and our businesses can do for themselves. I just don't find it. So when this comes to me, I'm giving you the areas that I'm concerned, and I'll be ready to read your 1,000 pages, but you're going to have a lot of explanation. You may need a little over 1,000 pages for the next, because I'm not sold. and I've got to be sold. I got to be, when I make my vote, I got to make sure I can explain it to my citizens why I made that vote. And right now, I could not make that vote. And also all this rushing back and forth, the drivers that we have at this time through our system we have now, they get high marks of courteous, and they drop something out, and that's one of the reasons I voted for them last time, because they will get out and clean it up. They'll even help the citizens if they see them struggling trying to get to the, and I don't want that I don't want the courtesy and that the people have had to go down the tube because you decide to put something else in and they got to run back and forth, so they got to get back there before the place they dumping it closed, because I know that situation too. I tell you, I have followed. We had 7 people, 7 haulers. I followed and tracked them all. Go and ask any of them. And I don't want them to be put in that position where they can't be nice and courteous to my citizens. And I don't want you tearing up my streets, because it's expensive to repave these streets. So these are things that I'm concerned about, and I was concerned about the first time. I think Peter and I think we did 2 of these contracts. And I will always have these things at the top of my list, as well as cost factor. So when you bring that report back to me, make sure you uncover these things that I noted, because those are some things I am concerned, and I want my citizens to not have to be concerned that maybe they don't think about these things, but between the 5 of us, I hope we got everything out here that our citizens would be concerned about later, because I've got some concerns. Thank you.
Your concerns are completely reasonable, and we definitely can work with you. And if you're not satisfied, then I ain't sold you. It's not a done deal.
Councilman Robinson?
Just, it seems like we're shooting the messenger here. So, he's just trying to tell us what the state is mandating, or what they potentially will mandate during the course of this contract. Okay, so, I appreciate you sharing all this information with us. I'm going to get back to the same point that some of this stuff isn't a done deal yet. Okay, so, and I don't want to just. We have to make certain assumptions as we're putting together an 8-year +1+1. Okay, so we have no choice here. We have to kind of be a little forward-looking, which I think you're trying to help us with, and I really appreciate that. But again, this isn't a done deal, and this is still our state, and we need to do something about it. Okay, so there's still a possibility to stop this, and I don't want to just give up and say, okay, Sacramento's just going to pull one over on us again. So we all need to be vigilant here, but. I appreciate your time here, and I just want to make that clear that, he's not the one that's pushing all this on us. He's trying to help us.
We think that, but we do want that contract to reflect what we want. And when you're doing an RFP for this amount of money, this is not no small contract like the little pond. As far as our duck pond, that's pennies compared to this contract. This is why we did the contract last time. I trailed every one of all the 7 people. There's some out there smiling because you remember me doing that. I called all over the United States and asked and had a questionnaire asking them what they think of their trash haulers and what's the name of your trash hauler. I did my homework, and I'm going to put this city on that kind of hawk. I know the portion that belongs to the state. I'm going to be eating them, but this isn't new. The Southern California Associated Government and the California League of Cities has already been fighting this ever since it was first proposed way back before now. This isn't the first round on these bills that's coming forth. And I've been at the table, and we are fighting it there, and we need to put that letter in tonight. But I do want any trash hauler that come here and think they're going to get that much money from my citizens for 10 years, that they better be able to prove that when I say yes, that they're getting what they can live with. Because I'm not voting this for me. I'm voting this for every citizen and every business in this city. And that when you're doing business, you should be able to take and follow the guidelines that the people that's got to do that vote is going to give. Because if the staff don't get it right, my citizens not going to get them. They're going to come up here and look at the 5 of us. I'm not shooting the messenger. I'm just making sure he got the right message to take back to who he is accountable to, because I'm accountable to all the city's citizens and the businesses here in my city. So I'm making sure he understands me, because I'm going to be on the legislators, and anybody here is going to, and all the citizens, I'm encouraging them to be on the legislature. This is preposterous, but they're asking for too much unrealistic, but we got some cities in this state, just like he told you. They long since and went way past this, 0 and 99, not one had 90, 97, 96. I've been looking at this stuff for years. This didn't just pop up. But I want him to be real clear what I'm looking for the citizens. I'm not beating him. Honey, if I beat you, you'll know it. But I do want him to know what I'm expecting. I want my staff to know what I'm expecting, because I've got to answer to the citizens. That's why they put me here, is to make the hard decisions, and I don't have a problem with doing that. That's all. So I don't think you thought I was beating you. Any city that don't give you clear guidelines, then they have no reason to complain later. I'm giving you clear instructions what I do and do not like.
And ultimately, you are my messenger.
Thank you.
Anything further? So I think there was a motion to table this, continue. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
and
listening.
your effort.
Thank you.
And all the recycling that you've provided us.
Okay.
Mayor, when would you like me to make the motion about the bill that we need to oppose? Do you want me to do it now, or you want me to
At the
wait till
close of the meeting,
legislation?
legislation.
I will wait till then.
Okay, item number?
Agenda item 20, potential modifications to the city's signage and promotion procedures and live entertainment regulations, submitted by Assistant City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the staff has provided everything that we believe we would need to cover, so we would defer to the council for any questions as you might have on this item.
For the public, please, thank you.
Jim Gardner?
I think he left.
He's gone.
His wife. Thank you for the update. Any others?
We've had no further requests.
On that, I actually brought this forth as incoming mayor, that I didn't think that banner time was adequate for what the businesses somewhat needed to do. So we put it to staff to go out and do some research and bring forth some potential modifications that are before us. And I'm in agreement with all of them except the tops. I think that we have 4 tops per year for 10-day per event. I think that if we, because that's what's currently, if we could add 1 tops to and add 10 more days to that for special events on that. I'm actually good with all this. Live entertainment is something that many of the restaurants in our city were asking for. During the summertime, living in Southern California, we live in a great climate, and we have some wonderful restaurants that have beautiful patios, and they would like to have a guitar player out on the patios for people to come and enjoy dinner and maybe wine afterwards. Something that we didn't, as a city, address, and so we're allowing that according to the new proposal and modification that's before us here, and I'm very pleased with staff's recommendations and their modifications. So I move this item as is myself right now, so that, and I'll open it up for discussion, but I'm pleased with everything else on this. The only other thing that maybe I could possibly add, Mayor Pro Tem Kathy brought it up earlier. I don't know if our temporary signage or banners would seasonal lighting along El Toro Road for the business be fallen into this category? Could we add that to this? I'd ask for clarification on that. For seasonal, just for the same, for obviously a time frame that, we could put in that it's up from this time to this time?
Mr. Members of the Council, is asking Mr. Belmer and perhaps Gil Ackerman. I believe, if anything, you need an electrical permit, but does that fall within the parameters today of, I guess I'll look to both Gil and to David, in terms of the program that exists? Can they do that today? Do they need to have a permit from us for that purpose?
Mayor, members of the council, the current sign ordinance does have a category for seasonal decorations. No permits are required. Of course, if you're doing something with electricity, it may kick in the need for an electrical permit. The lights aren't specifically mentioned here, but perhaps that's something we could clarify if that's the direction you want. We seem to have a place in the code where we could add something like that.
I'd like to clarify that and put that in. Maybe I think that having our businesses to sprucing up for the holidays is a good thing, because I'm trying to bring life to our city, and you know, we got such a great location. I call our city the gateway to South Orange County. We're right here where the 405 and 5 merge. We've got the great new businesses along El Toro Road. I think that what the businesses that we're having up in Foothill Ranch and the food court up there, I think that we have a lot going on in the sports park. We're such a great city, and I just like to sprucing it up and make it a more fun place. And during the holidays, I think it would just be great for people from the surrounding communities to come to Lake Forest, just because it's a beautiful place to drive through during the holidays. And so I would like to include that and maybe make that easier. And for holiday lighting, just to have Christmas or holiday lights along the windows, whether they be white or multicolored. They need a permit for that?
Only if electrical permit is required, if they've got something hooking up outside, or depending on what. But it doesn't require a sign permit.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. If I might, you know, as it's kind of pointed out in the staff report, there's actually various technical things that need to go on to move this forward. And so I think staff has laid out some very good parameters, and there's been some input on things. My recommendation would be is that we refer this to the Planning Commission to sort through those things, evaluate these things, and if they may have some others as well. And additionally, the Planning Commission, when we did meet together, they indicated they wanted to review some of the definitions that existed in the sign code. So that my motion would be take this whole packet, refer it to the Planning Commission for review and evaluation, particularly as far as the technical aspects, as well as evaluating those definition issues that they raised, and it's on the tape somewhere, that they raised at the joint workshop, and then that will come. Then I'll come back to the council for final review, change, and any approval that might exist.
Yeah, and I'll second that. Thank you for that clarification and putting it to them. I think, by the way, I've got to commend the staff on going out and finding the areas of interest that we all came up in our joint workshop. This was a few months ago where we had the Planning Commission and Park and Recs and City Council all together. We've come up with some great ideas, and I've got to commend our staff for going out there and finding the areas of interest and potential modification. You guys have done a great job. Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, please. And Councilman Nick.
I'd like to, since we're on the subject of signs, I'd like to, if this is the right time or if it can be done legally, I don't know, I'd like to propose that we further amend our sign ordinance so that from October 1 of each election year till 72 hours after the day of the election, or October 1 to 72 hours after the day of the election, our sign rules and regulations are not enforced simply because on the political signs that have to do with elections one way or another, not commercial signs, political signs. I think it's a First Amendment issue. I think it's every American's right to promote himself for any public office. And I mean, even when I was 15 years of age, I told somebody, look to the West. You want civilization, look to the West. And I was referring actually to the Western Europe. The subject was not USA. And I was punched in the mouth so badly that I lost a couple of teeth. I have been to Europe many times. I have lived in Europe, actually. All has been home for 30-plus years. I have a condominium in Monaco, or we pronounce it as Monaco in English. I have a condominium in Frankfurt. I frequently visit Europe, and I stay Well, because of the councilmanship now, I cannot stay more than a couple of weeks, but I have stayed months at a time. Some of the nicest cities in the world, when it comes to election, the train stations, subways, everywhere there's a political sign, and after the election it's all cleaned up. I think the ruling party of previous councils, for its own selfish interest, made sure that such signs are picked up, destroyed, and I have evidence to that actually, in my own case. I think we should make it so that our sign ordinance is not enforced for those few weeks, so that people can exercise their rights as Americans to run for public office or to support one person or another, one cause or another. To that end, at some point, I like to have it just like Virginia does, or maybe West Virginia. It's actually a felony if somebody picks up, destroys, or defaces a political sign. Commercial signs are a different story. Political signs, France, Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, I mean, these countries, you are so free politically, it's incredible. And yet, you are not. You actually go to jail for defacing someone's sign, for picking it up, throwing it away, whatever. I'd like to see that happen here. And as far as I know, either in Virginia or West Virginia, it is already a law whereby it is a felony to mess with signs of this particular nature. So, all in all, I like us to suspend our sign ordinance for the sake of free speech. So hopefully next time no ruling party stays in place for 20 years. If people know there are options out there, they may very well exercise those options. It's up to us to let them know that there are options.
Mayor, you're looking at me. I don't know if there's a Brown Act question. I think this discussion is properly before the council because this is notice modifications to the city's temporary signage, and the recommended action includes other input that may be identified by the city council. That said, you have a motion and a second on the table. Mr. Nick's idea could be added as a friendly amendment or as a substitute motion to amplify what's already before you on the table.
Just to be clear, the motion is that we're just passing this to the Planning Commission for now. They're going to be looking at it, come back with their recommendations, and then we'll ultimately vote. And if we have any changes to their recommendations, we can do so at that time. Is that correct? Okay. So at this point, I'm fine with that being on the list, something that the Planning Commission's considering. I know they can't consider every single option that's out there, so we're giving them a little bit of direction. And then, hopefully in a couple of meetings, we can be looking at this again.
So I'm confused here. So the Planning Commission is going to consider what I just said?
The motion that's on the table does not include, I don't think, Mr. Herzog, it's your motion, the political sign.
Then can I make a friendly amendment to it for it to be included?
I believe the political signage needs to be completely separate in a separate discussion at a separate time. If that's a discussion this city wants to have, that's fine, but it should not be part of this aspect of it. This is a commercial aspect, and we take the politics and put it over here and deal with that in an entirely separate time. And so I would not be agreeable to having it folded into this motion and sending that to the Planning Commission. This, like I said, it's dealing with what the mayor had raised. The staff had done, the initial analysis, and if we want to talk about political signs, we can have it. We can have that discussion.
We are having
it should
that
be
discussion.
separate.
Okay, just with respect to the political sign again, I think we have time because it's not like we're not the city of LA. We don't have an election today, so we have one a year and a half from now. So I'm fine with bifurcating it at this point.
We're on the subject right now. The city attorney said we can go ahead and include that. Why not? Why put it off? We're not them.
There's no rush. The
There is
impact-
a rush.
No,
I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah, but the impact,
And I don't mean to be here for 20 years. I don't need to use this as a client base.
but the...
I want to do some good things and move on.
Okay, wait a minute, wait. Just hold on a second. You'd better keep order here, because you just accused me of using this office as a client base, which is a bald-faced lie. There is no way on this planet that will happen.
Hey!
Did I mention your name?
Excuse me.
Oh, come here.
We are to check ourselves when we get out of order. Right now, I need everybody to lower their tempers, take a deep breath, and exhale. Now, let's get back on point. They can refuse to accept that. After that vote is over, you can make an amendment of your own and ask for the political signs to be considered and sent to the Planning Commission. You don't have to dovetail on theirs. You can make your own amendment. But y'all cannot act like that here in the city of Lake Forest. We have more class than that. So now, if they don't want to accept it, fine. Now, go ahead, Mayor, ask for the vote on that. When they finish voting on that, then you make your motion. Okay?
On Peter's recommendation, this be sent to the Planning Commission. I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Now?
Can I make a motion?
Please, you make.
Then I would like to make a motion to amend that.
No, not to, you're making your own motion.
I want to make a
your own
motion so that they also consider...
No, your motion stands on its
You
own.
make the motion for me. This is so...
Okay, I'll help you. I'll help you. The motion is to send to the Planning Commission to look at political signs, how that they would be suspended. Now, suspended is not the word you should use. What you want them to do is look at political signs when look at political signs, period, and that would include from what time and period, because you said October, but we really actually pull our papers in July, I think it is, City Clerk, in July. And that it would be including the period of time that after papers are finalized, are pulled until it's time to take them off the streets. And that placement on business, commercial businesses, homes, or wherever. That is what you probably are looking for to send there. So you need to second that or either restate that. Is that what you wanted?
I think 3 months is too much. I really think...
Well, we can put out signs.
I don't want to clutter the
once we-
city for 3 or 4 months, but I'm fine. As long as...
Okay, well then, let's not put a time on there. It just says, just have them to put the time on it. They need to look at it first.
Sure.
So ask them to look at it and for them to get back to us. They don't have to even bring it back when this come back, but for them to take and look at it. That's what you want to do, is to start the process, right?
I second that motion, right there.
Okay. It's been first and second.
I call for the vote.
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
No.
I'd like to make a friendly request. I liked what we did here. I would like for when this comes back to us, if you can tell me some way, I asked it when it was before us last time, if there's 4 businesses in a row and all 4 of them put in for a permit to have outdoors music, how you're going to do it where the volumes don't interrupt with each other, because some businesses are close by each other or adjourning to each other, adjourned. So I would like that to be back. I don't need a motion. Just put it in a report, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Item number 21.
What is 21?
Agenda item 21, potential establishment of term limits for city council members, submitted by city manager.
Finally, at last. All right.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this was actually put on the agenda by the council at the request of Councilmember Nick, so we defer to your...
So I'm giving it to you. I'm giving the floor to public comments.
Marcia Rudolph.
We're now on to the fun stuff. Bit of history. It was because of the behavior of a gentleman by the name of Willie Brown that a lot of people objected to, that the concept of term limits was originally brought up, got ahead of steam, and was approved by the electorate. Between me and the lamppost, I was opposed to it then, as I am opposed to it now, and will be opposed to it when they lay me in the sod. What term limits is, it basically truncates your ability to get the best people with knowledge, experience, and history into elective office. And if you have someone who has those qualities, but unfortunately is term limited, they then have to leave office taking their knowledge, their experience, and their expertise with them. We saw this happen with an Orange County representative by the name of Todd Spitzer, who was doing a magnificent job up in Sacramento, and was very innovative in the way that he approached his representation of us in Orange County and of the people of California, but he got term limited. I think that term limits are un-American. We have something called elections, and elections are term limits. When you think and plan and get knowledgeable, when you walk into the booth, you are doing the best job possible to have people in office who need to be in office and are eligible to be in office. It is extremely important, and I find that people who are in favor of term limits do not trust their fellow American citizens. I trust the fellow American citizens, and candidly, twice I've been term limited out in the voting booth. That's the way it should be. It is important that we have as much freedom as possible, and when you have a restriction, such as term limits, you're limiting our freedom.
Thank you. Anybody further?
We've had no further requests.
Then I'm bringing it back to Councilman Nick. He's the one that's brought this forth on the agenda. Adam?
Term limits are not un-American. Term limits allow for fresh blood, fresh perspective. It goes against people using public office as a career rather than public service. It surely takes away the power of incumbency. The fact of the matter is, any five of us can goof for the next 2 or 4 years, and there's a good chance we may get elected again. Or at least if we don't get elected, we have a great name recognition 2 years or 4 years down the road. Term limits somewhat adjusts for that. It gives, it makes the playing field level, in my opinion. It is not un-American. I am one by choice. For 20 years, the same people ruled this city. On March 1, 2010, to my disbelief and to the disbelief of every single of the public who was here outside of this door, there were exchanges of, well, I wouldn't repeat. All I told those people back then was, remember this anger, remember this disappointment, and make your vote count a couple of years from now, when the time comes. A year went by. On March 1, 2012, a year later to the day, I had found only one qualified person who I could support. I had no choice but to run. I had promised him that I would run if I could not find somebody else. I lived up to my promise. It was hard to get name recognition. My signs were destroyed. I have pictures. I pleaded to Tony Rokakis' office. They said, well, nothing we can do. It is what it is. You need to get in there and you need to suspend the sign ordinance for a few weeks prior to the election. Otherwise, the city has every right to remove them from public property. I said, I'm going to get my name recognition. They said, well, good luck to you. It was hard to get name recognition. Nevertheless, I had good friends who supported me. And I'm not talking financially. I didn't take money from anybody but a couple of friends, and nominal. Finally, I got the name recognition, and I ran, and we know the rest. I don't intend to be here for 20 years. If I cannot accomplish everything that I want to accomplish in 4 years, max 8 years, then I am the stupidest person on the face of the earth, and I'm not cut out for this. This is not 4 years, 8 years at most is what it takes. In fact, I would do it sooner coming from the private sector, except everything in government takes time. You see what happens here with the bickering. So all in all, I want term limits. It is not un-American. I take offense in that. I take exception to that comment. Nothing I say or do is un-American. I make a motion for us to have, I wanted 2, but the consensus says 3. 3 4-year terms is the max. And if they want to run again, they need to take at least 2 years off to lose their part of incumbency, and then they can come back. That's my motion.
Okay. I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
But I'm opening up for discussion. Councilman Herzog.
The term limits, you indicated 8 years is max. I think it should be 8 years. Also, I do think you need to make it a lifetime, because otherwise you just create the continued rotation that people have talked about that they don't think is appropriate, because people take 2 years off and they come back, and we have a history of that throughout the county. So basically then you are allowing people to just stay on for however long you seem to feel is inappropriate. So my motion would be that we make it an 8-year term limit lifetime, and that we direct staff to come back with that ordinance for the council to approve.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Do we have any second on that? Seeing none, I call for the vote.
Aye.
For Adam Nix, term limits 3 4-year terms with a 2-year, and I say aye. Roll call. We'll roll call that.
And for clarification, that this is to direct staff to come back with an ordinance implementing 3 4-year terms with a 2-year break before people are allowed to run again.
Correct.
Okay.
And that will be
Mayor, if I could, there's some implementation steps. One is the second important step is it has to be presented for the public for a vote at a general election. So
would that be on 2014?
It could be a special election, but that'd be really.
We don't want to do that.
So yeah, we bring back a kit to implement
Thank you.
pursuant to this direction.
Okay.
Just real quick, Mr. Smith, I think I already know the answer, but this can't be retroactive, right? It's just, it moves forward, so everyone who's currently here, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on how it all works.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There has to be a new shot clock
Yep.
for every candidate beginning with their election, following the effective date of the initiative. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Smith, people have to ratify this next year in the election?
That's right, yeah. It has to be submitted to the voters.
Okay, great. I'm sure they'll go for it.
There's no way to avoid the election thing, because, I mean, that's just a waste of money and time.
No, we'll give you the kit next time, but the government code requires now that it be submitted to the voters if there was ever any doubt.
All right.
Thank you. I call for the vote.
Aye.
Or roll calling.
He asked for a roll.
Councilmember Herzog?
Yeah, as I mentioned, my vote will be no, because it's not a permanent term limit. It's just a rotation.
Councilmember Nick?
Gladly, yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McCullough?
Yes.
Mayor Voights?
Considering some on our council served far over this term limit, I say yes. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, please. I'd like to make a motion that if we're going to send this out to the public, well, it's going to cost us the same amount of money
On the general.
on the general election, because this year it would be 50, 60,000. For special elections, start at 50,000 and go up. So this doesn't come until next year. But
I'm sorry.
But what I would like to do is I'd like to give our citizens the opportunity to vote for mayor. And I'd like to see if we could if I can get a consensus vote to send that along with it. Because our citizen doesn't get to vote for mayor. We vote for mayors and mayor pro tem among ourselves. So if you're going to re-zap the whole system, let's re-zap it from the bottom up. Let's put it out and ask the citizens, would they like to take and have the opportunity to vote for their mayor and mayor pro tem? They can say no. How much more is it going to cost us for another line? That has to go to the vote?
Mayor and Council, first off, let me I just double-checked the government code. The term limits can only be voted on at a regular election, so you don't have to worry about a special election. With regard to a directly elected mayor, that's not on your agenda, so I'd ask that you get a consensus to discuss that next time.
That's what I said, a consensus.
Okay. For discussion the next time, that could be brought back to you conceptually for discussion with a consensus of 2.
I only have one vote. Anybody else would consent to bringing it back for discussion?
Discussion, absolutely.
2, 3, 4. Okay, I got 4. Bring it back. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Moving right along.
Agenda item 22, legislative and regulatory matters, submitted by city manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I believe one member of the council has been waiting for this item. Staff has nothing further to add at this juncture.
I make a motion that we send an opposition letter
I second that.
on 223?
323.
323.
Yes.
Yes.
I second that.
And ask, and in the meantime, on that, I've got a first and a second. Is it possible that that we can take and ask our staff to give us updates? You know, sometimes these bills move really fast, and they get sanctioned before we even know. And so anything else pertaining to this and this bill, could we be noted immediately and not just wait for the update? If you get a flash on it, fax or email us out immediately so we can get on the phone and start calling people to help us to try to defeat this.
Is that the last item?
Agenda item 23.
No, we're not through with 22. We got some more. You know, Peter got to say something on legislation.
Well, and we have to vote, too.
Yep.
You got the motion to oppose AB 323.
Mm-hmm. I thought I heard it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we did.
We did.
I called you the vote, yeah.
You want to vote now? Go ahead and put your yes in so you can go down as a yes. Okay, we all said yes, all 5.
It's our 14% of our diversion rate.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
I have another one.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I know you got a lot of stuff.
No,
I can shut up after this. There's a what is, I think her name is Q, I can't remember her name. Anyway, for the senior citizens, CSL, I'd like for you to take and put it on there for next time for watch. There's a bill out trying to stop the emergency programs for seniors where they claiming that the people that are trying to go to school to learn how to be to work with seniors, that they can't get into classes because too many seniors in there, and they want to take the money away and put it there for them, and that's not true. Those are two different pots. The state's doing the same thing that they did with the school. They're making us pay through the money they stole from the schools, doing all the triple and double flips. They took our redevelopment and they sent in some to the schools, trying to backfill that. But then took the money that they should be having those classes available for the people that's going to school and pay for them, and the ones that through the Older Adult Act that we should have the right to go to school. So I'd like for that to be on so we can vote to send a letter up next time. So it's first we got to put it on here, and then we can send a letter, because they're doing the smoke and mirrors and the stuff. You know what? I don't know. Are they going to sleep? They giving everybody's money so they can stuff it in their mattress to sleep on or something, and I hope they can't sleep, because they are thieves. And here we go again. Now what you're going to do with seniors? If their brains aren't, they don't get socialization and their brains don't get stimulated, then they die. We got to pay more in medical because they're not going to be able to function. So that costs us more money. Keep them in school and keep them socializing. Put that on next time, and maybe I can get 3 people then.
Councilman.
Come on, Peter. I'll be waiting to hear what you got to say.
Legislative. Okay, I was too.
I met with the staff of the State Water Board, not the regional, but the State Board last Friday, and they're coming up with, or they're evaluating a new program that would deal with basically some of our MS4 requirements. They are talking about supposedly getting a 100% capture system, and we have been actively involved in putting these gates on, but what they're talking about is actually ones done with the containers underneath. I supposedly, wet occasion, which I believe differs from what we're putting in currently. So then we've got 2 problems. One is this is a new requirement that the state is evaluating, forcing onto cities, because although they've talked about putting it in front of what are called priority land uses, which would be high-density residential, industrial, commercial, and public transportation stations, basically their idea is then to require these larger catch basins be in place in those areas of a city or or a county if you're not in city jurisdiction. And this is something they're currently evaluating. There's various options involved with regards to how much enforcement is involved. And so they're planning to create what would be an amendment to the state water program, proposing that sometime in July and hopefully executing it by this fall. This would be voted on by the State Water Board, not through the legislature. They're doing this through the regulatory authorities. And I think this is something I would like to have, I think would be good for the city to evaluate, because it would be another mandate for us. Additionally, I think we need to evaluate whether or not we need to stop spending the money we currently are, because we're putting in things that they're going to regulate potentially out of being useful by the end of the year. And obviously we are doing some of that work through grants with OCTA, so I think we need to talk to them as well to see, kind of where this goes. But there clearly needs to be some further, because they were pretty vague in their discussions. There weren't a lot of specifics. As you'll see, I'll give this to the city manager. The 6 pages is not very elucidating. And although they had us there for 3 hours, that wasn't even very elucidating either. But there was definitely a variety of concerns expressed in the room when this was being presented, and so it needs a lot of work and time. So, I would just like consensus to have staff take a look into this further, particularly as to how it affects the city and what we're currently already doing as well.
Yes.
He's calling for success. I say yes.
You have it. Thanks.
Agenda item 23, a request for appointment, League of California Cities, Association of California Cities, Orange County, and/or the Orange County City Selection Committee, submitted by City Clerk.
Are there any? Okay, seeing none, I bring it back to council.
You need to report out what happened at the last one. We went to the last one.
Oh.
You received the RAND.
Yeah.
And you're going to put that under your council? Go right ahead. Go for it.
Okay, city manager?
I have nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, bring it back to council. Councilman Peter Herzog? Councilman Adam Nick?
I'll try to be quick. Civility, Mr. Herzog, that's what I pray for. I did not mention you by name.
Peter.
There's no reason for you to get up your chair and I'll be quick. In the late 1990s, I was in Frankfurt once. I have this friend who teaches some kind of engineering in some university in Frankfurt. He worked and still works for Porsche. He invited me to a track that Porsche has outside of Frankfurt. It's a track, half-a-mile track. You pay $5,000. They give you a reinforced Porsche 911, 911, and you get it for 15 minutes. You can go as fast as you want, as fast as you can. They give you a 15-minute training as to the equipment. It's a reinforced, super-duper Porsche. As long as you press that gas, it goes. Top speed, probably 500 kilometers, which is about 300 plus miles an hour. It's got plastic all over, and all the track is covered with plastic. $5,000, 15 minutes. 5,000 Deutschmarks, I apologize. This is before December 21, 02, obviously. It was a steel Deutschmark. 5,000 Deutschmark, almost $2,500, 15 minutes. My friend talked me into it. Long story short, I get my train, and I get behind the wheel, and he and I made a bet. I thought I could reach 300 kilometers, which is about 170, 180 miles an hour. I couldn't. He said that he would pay for it if I could reach 300. I couldn't. The reason I couldn't was not because the car couldn't do it. It's because the driver was not fit. The driver was not a professional driver. The driver could not reach the speed that most everybody else who knew what he was doing would reach easily. Fast forward to 2013. If I am harsh on the lack of accomplishments in the last 20 years, Mr. Dunick and Mr. Smith, you are that car, you are that engine. We are the drivers. So I hope by that, and I may have butchered the story, but I hope by that you know that when I when I point out weaknesses or negatives, it has nothing to do with the two of you gentlemen or the staff for that matter. You're the engine, and you're a great engine. It's the driver. It's the driver. It actually didn't even have a wheel. It was half a wheel. I don't know what they call it, but very, 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 very responsive to the driver. The gas was responsive, the engine was responsive, the steering wheel, or whatever that was, it was like a pilot thing. Everything was responsive. So everything was there. The driver was the issue. The driver was the problem. The council here is the driver. My wedding reception, Mr. Herzog, had to be held at a hotel outside of Lake Forest because there was no hotel. There is no hotel in Lake Forest accommodating 250 people. My children will have to be born when God gives them to me. They will have to be born at the Mission Hospital. They will have to go to Laguna Hills Mall to buy whatever these kids buy. They will have to go to a 4-year in Irvine or Fullerton. Every time I want to take the metro, I got to go down to Irvine. And the list goes on. So, if you see that I'm frustrated, it's because the most simple things people of Lake Forest don't have. And that's why I ran. Give them what I think they deserve to have. You don't seem to like it. You seem to jump on me.
You got to stop him.
And then one other thing I want to say before, and one other thing I want to say, because I have heard this enough times, and I'm sick and tired of it. There are a handful of people know this, including our city manager and Mr. City Attorney. My lawsuit against the city of Lake Forest, if I lose, it will not, I am not being stopped by the city attorney, so please allow me the latitude to go on. It will not lose the city of Lake Forest, not even one penny. If I am proven not right and not righteous in the end, which there's a great likelihood of that, because the court system gives a lot of difference to...
Mr. Nick, we can't...
Then can I say that it will not cost the city? Because I am sick and tired of Mr. Herzog pointing out my lawsuit and what it's costing the city. It's not going to cost the city a dime. I'm going to, you know that, Mr. Donick knows that. I'm going to reimburse the city.
We shouldn't have you talking about that interest while you're in the council seat, but you can write the council and make that position public as a private citizen. That'd be my preference at this stage.
Mr. Mayor, I did not use my time, and there's very clearly a personal preference here.
You've got 2 minutes.
That's fine. That's all I need. Just very coolly.
Y'all making this harder than it should be.
The discussion about there not being a cost is inaccurate. There are attorney's fees. So it does cost the city.
Okay, we're not going to get into debate.
That's all I have to say. Next, as far as what this council achieved over the last 20 years, for some reason, apparently there's a thought that I was the only one that did anything. That is not correct. It was a group of several people that were involved. There were great achievements in this city, including El Toro Road and the sports park. I would be more than happy to discuss my dedication to this city and what has been accomplished over these 20 years with anyone, at any time, in any location, as opposed to listening to some of the drivel we've heard this evening. So anytime, I'm more than happy to do it. And hopefully this uncalled for kind of stuff will stop in the future.
Councilman Robinson.
Okay, on a lighter note yet again. I had a tremendous experience this weekend going to Aliso Creek Cleanup Day. Amazing turnout. We had 131 people. So we had 80 adults, 51 kids. There were Girl Scouts out there. There were Boy Scouts. That's helping with some of our water quality issues, right? We're cleaning up trash, tons and tons of bags. That's what makes Lake Forest great. So I'm just going to keep saying it, and really appreciated everyone that was out there. Had the opportunity to take my my almost 8-year-old son, and I hope that he looks back on days like that and is proud of the place that he grew up in. And shortly after that, had the opportunity to go to the Neighborhood Watch, which was mentioned earlier. about 20 people showing up to a neighborhood watch. It was great. Melissa did a fantastic job. It's nice to see that, again, that community involvement. Also had a great time at Prelude in the Park on Sunday. Watch our high schoolers provide some entertainment for all of us. As a violinist, not in many years other than just playing with my daughter every once in a while, but as a violinist, really appreciated that, and I love the strings, one of my favorite parts, and my daughter is an up-and-coming violinist, so for her to see the role model that those role models, those high school students, and how they're giving so much of their time to learn a skill that's going to bring joy to other people. So had a great time this weekend. Again, this is a great city to live in. I love it. I appreciate every day the opportunity you've given me to serve you, and I'll continue to do the best job I can. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Mayor Pro Tem Kathy McCullough.
Thank you. And on a happy note, I attended the Orange County Library Committee, and we're up and running with new officers. And the TCA, I went to five or six of those. We've had several, and we had 3 or 4 different votes. They have another one coming. The 241, the vote on the new CEO, the vote on the bonds, and now we have another one coming up. So if Mayor's not able to be there, I will be there. I am keeping myself brief. As long as they keep sending me the minutes, I can go over that and not have to read quite as much. I attended the Senior Citizen Advisory Council, and I gave you that little bit up there. And the Lake Forest Workshop, it's always good when we get together and we start trying to direct ourselves in the method that the citizens has told us that we need to go, and our pocketbook has told us that we need to go. So we need to get that. A home needs to plan their monies out real good. Also, we had the Newport Bay Watershed, and I attended it. I'm never happy when I attend when they don't have my Serrano Creek, and I just told them that even if I retire, if I die as they're trying to cremate me, I'm going to be hollering, "Fix my creek." And so they should have it on the agenda next time. They didn't have anything on there about our city this time. I attended the ACC LOCC OCD, and at the city selection, don't you hate acronyms? Now let me tell you what that is. One is League of California City Orange County Division, and the other one is Association of California Cities Orange County. Now, all the different appointments of commissions and stuff goes through them, and we vote on them. It's all the mayors and councils throughout vote on it. And it was held in Irvine this time, which was good, because that was close for a change. And as I told you last time, I would be running to get re-elected as Orange County Housing Authority Commissioner, because I am chair this year, and also the other committee that I need to be re-elected to was the 2020 Commission dealing with the Homeless Task Force, and our manager, Bob Dunnick, is on it also. And our mayor, he was running for RAN, Remote Access Network, and he received that. We both of us received everything that we were running to get. Now, some of you may have been there, but I want to remind you, we had a mayor's prayer breakfast, and it was a wonderful prayer breakfast. Very old friend of mine, not old in age, well, we both are old, but someone that I've known for many years, former Senator Bill Morrow. He was our speaker. He's always a good speaker. I keep telling him he ought to be a preacher. But he was there to speak, and it was a very nice event. Lots of people. I don't want to run out of time because I want to get us out of here. And the mayor and I also attended Kathy Moon's retirement, and she was teaching for 40 years. And of course, I think all of us was at the Prelude in the park. Were you there, Peter? Well, you was there in spirit. Anyway, I love it. I try to go to all the concerts I can, but I still say I would like to have all the concerts be on a piece of paper so I can put them all in my book at one time, because sometimes I miss them. But it's always good. I love it. I love it. I love it. and it's good to let us see what our high school children are doing. We also had an Eagle Scout. We had an Eagle Scout that was over where? I forgot where it was. But we're still getting Eagle Scouts. I went to the TIP Advisory Board, and they sent me some things to give to our lieutenant. We're starting a new program with that. We'll be going around to the different cities and all of the ones that are a part of us. I want to remind you that Memorial Day is coming up, and if you haven't got a poppy, you should see people standing at the stores with the poppies, the buddy poppies. We have an Eagle Scout coming up on Memorial Day, too. And on Memorial Day, we'll be at El Toro. Many of us will be at the El Toro Memorial Cemetery we have something there on Memorial Day and what other day? A couple of days. What time is it? 10:30. No, it starts at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
You always have to be at 10:30. And at the same time, there's going to be another Eagle Scout. I'd like to close this meeting in memory of the great losses that they had, catastrophic losses that they had in Oklahoma. You know, I think that, I know we have in God we trust, and some may or may not believe, you know, or have a God of their choice, or don't believe in God. But I tell you what, Americans, we have been having a lot of tragedies happen, people going crazy, shooting up, killing up people. The weather's been killing out families and stuff. And whether you're a prayer or not, if you're just a person that says, let me exhale, we need to remember that there's a lot of things going on, and try and remember the people. And if by any chance that you want to send something to help financially, please make sure it's reputable. Don't just send it to these different people that call. Make sure you go through one of the agencies like Salvation Army or something, and make sure you get to the people. But I would like to close our memory in every loss that has happened, because we had two disasters. One was in Texas and one was in Oklahoma, where people the weather has taken some lives and devastated some cities and some states.
Well, on that, I want to say how grateful and blessed I feel to serve as the mayor of the city of Lake Forest, and how fortunate I am to serve with my fellow council members here, whether it be Councilman Adam Nick, Councilman Dwight Robinson, Peter Herzog, and my Mayor Pro Tem Kathy McCollum, and those that have come before us, like Marsha Rudolph and Richard Dixon and Mark Teddemer. We actually have a great legacy here in the city of Lake Forest, and we actually do live in a great place. I always talk about location, but we are the gateway to South Orange County. We have many amenities, and we're getting many more. And what makes Lake Forest such a great place is the people. I'm very fortunate to serve with my fellow council members here and have such a great staff. So on that, I would like to say that I, too, attended the Prelude to the Park and thought it was a blessing. We had a Lake Forest Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, and I was honored to be the mayor this year and host that. It was a great turnout, over 160 people, and Bill Morrow did a great job in blessing our city. So I just want to close with the memory of the loss, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, of the loss, those lives, and those children that were lost in Oklahoma these last few days because of the tornadoes and those that cause of wind. So I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you, staff, for being here. And Councilman, thank you for serving here. Thank you. And let's close it for a moment of silence. Thank you.